Good morning. Thank you for being so patient and for coming out today. Welcome to the Urban League of Middle Tennessee's Group Violence Interventions Conference 2026. My name is Glenn Hancock, and I am the Program Manager for Group Violence Intervention here at the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. And we are honored to have each and every one of you here today. We're talking about community leaders, advocates, public safety professionals, partners, and change makers who share a deep commitment to building safer, stronger, and more equitable communities. Your presence here reflects a collective belief that violence is not inevitable. Your presence also shows that through collaboration, accountability, and opportunity, real change is possible. Today is more than just a conference. It is a call to action. It is a space where strategy meets compassion, where data meets lived experience, and where partnerships are strengthened to create meaningful impact. Together, we all explore innovative approaches, elevate community voices, and deepen our understanding of how the group violence intervention model can save lives and transform futures. So again, thank you for being here, for your dedication, and for the role that each of you plays in advancing safety and opportunity across Middle Tennessee. Welcome, and let's get started. Our first speaker is a man of great conviction. Clifton E. Harris, President and CEO of the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, is a transformative civic and nonprofit leader. You just gonna go ahead and do that? All right, he's here.
Don't take all that. Good morning. To our friends, our partners, our supporters, and our investors, thank you for being here today and for your commitment to the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. At the heart of our work is simple, but a powerful mission. We are here to empower communities and change lives. That mission comes to life through our group violence intervention program, where we address violence not only as a public safety issue, but as an economic and human issue that affects families, neighborhoods, and the future of our city. The impact of this work is real, y'all. By helping individuals most at risk choose a different path. How many in here had the pleasure of choosing a different path? But by the grace of God. By helping individuals choose a different path, we have helped avoid nearly $2 million in public costs tied to incarceration, emergency response, and hospital care, court costs, and a whole bunch of other costs. I learned early, my grandmother told me when I got married, she said, son, you only need to remember one thing. It's cheaper to keep her. And it is cheaper to invest in group violence than not invest in group violence. So, but more importantly than the dollars that we are saving, it's the lives being redirected. Individuals are connected to jobs, stable housing, transportation, and support systems they need to build a better future. This is about restoring people and rebuilding trust through outreach, through mentorship, and strong partnerships are helping individuals make safer decisions while strengthening relationships between residents, community leaders, and law enforcement. Together, we are sending a clear message that violence must stop and that supports the opportunity for people to be able to choose different paths. When violence comes down, everything else goes up. Families become more stable, children are better able to focus in school, neighborhoods become safer places to live and invest in, And that is the kind of change we are working towards every day. But none of this happens alone. It takes collaboration. I want to thank our partners, including the Metropolitan Health Department, the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department, and the community leaders and the residents who stand with us in this work. Your partnership makes progress possible. As we begin this conference, I encourage each of you to think about your role in this effort, because the work we do today will determine whether more families experience loss or whether more communities experience hope. Together, we can save lives, strengthen families, and build safer, stronger neighborhoods for all. And that is why, on behalf of the Board of Directors and the staff of the Urban League of Middle Tennessee, we are happy to have you here today, but let's get on with the business of empowering communities and changing lives. Thank you.
Let's give another round of applause for President Harris. Our next speaker is Captain Anthony Brooks with the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department. He's proudly served the department for 20 years and currently oversees the department's Office of Alternative Policing Strategies. OAPS manages the department's mental health co-response programs, Partners in Care, group violence intervention, and community outreach and partners. Prior to being promoted to captain, Captain Brooks served as a program manager for Partners in Care during the pilot phase and following. Captain Brooks has a bachelor's degree in broadcast and communication from Union University in Jackson, Tennessee. Please put your hands together for Captain Anthony Brooks.
Thank you, Glenn. There's not really a flat spot to sit my water, so if I make it awkward and bend down and get water from time to time, I apologize for that. I'm trying to make sure I don't go over time. So, all right. So my name is Anthony Brooks. Glenn said a lot of nice things about me, about what I've done with the police department, and I currently oversee our Office of Alternative Policing Strategies. With that, some of the programs that Glenn mentioned, and one of the reasons we're here is I oversee our GVI program as well. So what I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes or so is talk to you a little bit about the work that we're doing, because Clifton said a lot of things about choosing a different path, and you'll see in the two main things that I talk about, Partners in Care and Group Violence Intervention, that the police department is working to help individuals do that. Before I get into the meat of that, a lot of times you do presentations and you do Q&A at the end, but I'm going to answer a couple on the front end that I get a lot, and then it might save us some time at the end. So I'm 6'10". I know a lot of you are probably wondering. The follow-up to that, yes, I did used to play basketball. I mentioned I was at Union University. That's me at Union University when I was a young man, much younger, get off the ground a lot better, more at Union. That guy was 7'2". He can come get some too. I'm pretty sure I dropped 25 on him that game. I'm just young and lots of hair, and it was black. It was amazing. By the way, this is the most self-serving part of the presentation you're going to see. This is midlife crisis stuff right here. It's just like, oh, I used to be somebody. Look at, 49 points in a game. Look at that. That's crazy. I still hold that record. There I am after school. That's in the Netherlands. It took two of them to guard me, and I still gave them all kinds of fits. So that was a fun game we played in Essen in the Netherlands against a German team. So you can see that the rise in the jump shot is not what it once was. 18 years later, I'm not getting off the ground quite like I used to. That's an alumni game on the right that I played at Union. And I still play every now and then. Our police department does have a basketball team. That's a game against the fire department. And just so that you know this is not all completely self-serving, in this game against the fire department, we're down 3. Let me set the stage for you. We're down 3. And we had the ball on the other end. And so we inbounded, and I drew up a play to give myself the last shot because, of course, because I could shoot before all the big guys were doing it, right? So I'm like, all right, we need a 3. I need to tie this game. So I spin off of this guy. He's young. He's like 25 years old, not quite as tall as me, but a big guy, very athletic. So I spin off him. I don't create the space that I quite wanted to create. He held me a little bit, but I'm not complaining because I think he actually wanted to foul so I could go to the line and get 2 and not even tie the game. So I'm okay with the fact they didn't call it, but I didn't get the space I wanted. So I'm going up for the shot, and this son of a gun blocked it. So not everything ends well. That's in this photo you see we have the thrill of victory and agony of defeat all in one photo. Wide world of sports. All right, that's enough. I just wanted you to know a little bit of my background prior to doing police work. Oh wait, there's video. Oh, it's not the videos. Oh, here we go. Look at that. There's no audio on the video. If there was, you would just hear this guy crying. Oh yeah. Yeah, right? Okay. Yeah. I actually forgot to put these videos on there. But this is a fun moment for everybody. I know you're loving it. Oh, footwork. You know. Yep. Oh, this is me still doing it. Yuck. All right. Yeah, I don't get inside and dunk on people anymore. I don't get off the ground like I used to. All right, let's get to some real stuff. All right. That was, like I said, it's my midlife crisis. Thank you for indulging me. Please. All right. All right. So I'm going to start off a little bit with partners in care because as I mentioned, it's a great piggyback off of Dr. Harris's speech about the choosing different paths because that's one of the things we wanted to do with the mental health co-response. Like a while back in 2020, there was a lot of focus on mental health and mental health related uses of force in the police community. And we wanted to figure out a way that we could, 1, reduce those, but 2, actually plug people in to appropriate levels of care. Because if you're going through a behavioral health crisis, the best place for you is not always a jail cell. So we wanted to be able to fix that. And we call it Partners in Care because everybody on this slide that's represented by a graphic is involved in some way or another. We have the health department helps us with the collection and management of our data. The mental health cooperative provides our clinicians. The clinicians don't work for us. It's a partnership with Mental Health Cooperative. The fire department helps us out a lot in certain things in the field. The mayor's office writes the checks, so that's nice. And DEC did a really good job of working on which calls need to go to like Partners in Care versus which ones would go to regular patrol. So these are the goals that we have for the program. We want to improve the access to care for those experiencing a behavioral health crisis. Like I said, jail cells, we don't have great care, and that's not the best thing for somebody, but sometimes that was all an officer had at their disposal. There might be an officer who's on something that thinks, well, this person doesn't need to be in jail, but technically, by letter of the law, there is probable cause to make an arrest, and if we don't do something, issues are going to continue. So it was our only option sometimes to end up resolving an issue on the surface. So second thing up there along those lines, we want to divert the consumers out of the mental health or out of the criminal justice system and into the mental health care system because we want to be able to get them the proper level of care. We want to improve communication against all those different systems of care so that they can actually have the best outcome possible. And then last thing up there on this slide is not the least important, but we want to increase safety for everyone involved in these interactions, whether for the police, the officers, the clinicians, and then those that are in crisis. We use a mental health co-response model. That's where we have master's level clinicians that ride with patrol officers and answer calls for service. There's other ways to do this. Other cities have done it without law enforcement. We actually have a program like that in Nashville with the fire department called REACH, where we have a clinician that rides with a paramedic, and they go to lower acuity calls for service that involve behavioral health crisis, where there's less chance that there's an element of danger. We can never eliminate an element of danger. We can never predict whether it's going to be there or not, but they're going to go to less, where there's less chance of that. And the reason we do co-response, and we don't just do it all without law enforcement, is bottom line is the general public, as they may want us out of some of these crisis interactions, and quite frankly, some police officers probably would like that as well, just because sometimes we don't necessarily feel equipped to deal with behavioral health. However, the general public doesn't see something and go, that's a behavioral health crisis, we should call a clinician. They just see something and go, something bad is happening right now, call 911. And the ones that show up are us. So instead of trying to work on just saying we shouldn't go at all, we're going to be there, so why not give us the tools to do it? We want our officers to be in uniform as well, to build that rapport with the communities. We want that good interaction to carry over. If we have a good interaction with a partners in care unit with somebody that's going through crisis, our program is only 5 days a week, and there's a 6-hour gap of time in the overnight shift that's not covered. So we're not 24/7. So there's going to be times that these crises are going to have to be answered without a clinician. So just imagine if that person had a good interaction when a clinician was present. If they have an interaction on a Saturday when we don't have a clinician, we're hoping that'll carry over. Like last time I talked to somebody dressed like that, they were really helpful. Hopefully this will go well. And so we think that'll carry over. Plus, we also want our officers to be able to respond to all calls for service. We don't want to just make them a mental health unit, because having that clinician is actually pretty useful on a lot of different things that aren't even behavioral health crisis related. You go to a domestic violence situation, people are upset, and you have that extra tool. So this programs have been extremely helpful. In order to ride with our clinicians, we do put our officers through an extra 40 hours of crisis intervention team training. That's held and taught by my office and the mental health co-op. Now, prior to that, our officers have received a pretty good amount of training to begin with in mental health and de-escalation tactics. But the things you see on the screen are some of the things that we go over with our officers just to better equip them, because like I mentioned, not every officer is going to have a clinician or even access. You might be on a shift where that doesn't exist. One thing that we do that I think is unique to some of these programs is that we put our clinicians through a little bit of training on the police side. The reason we do this is we've seen in other cities where police officers looking at something from a law enforcement perspective, clinicians looking at a clinical perspective. A lot of times those things don't marry up too well. And there are certain things that police officers have to do. There's certain laws that limit our discretion with whether or not we can and can't make an arrest. And sometimes, unfortunately, law handcuffs us a little bit, no pun intended, and we can't actually divert the way we'd want to. And that creates friction between clinicians and officers in other cities. So what we did was we would have put our clinicians through some training so that we can show them some of the situations where we have limited discretion. Yes, we understand this might not be the best thing on the mental health side, but our hands are tied and we have to do this. And that's cut down a lot of friction in our program. These officers are going to go to mental health crisis calls, they're going to go to suicidal calls, but they're also going to go to a lot of different calls that may not be simple, that may not on the surface look like it's a behavioral health crisis. They're going to go to things that like people that are intoxicated, maybe there's a mental health component there. They're going to go to domestic violence calls, maybe there's a mental health crisis component there. So that's when I mentioned Department of Emergency Communications did a lot to help us out in the beginning with deciding which calls go where. That was their role in it. We have goals, so we obviously need to make sure we're meeting those goals. The way we do that is we collect data. Our officers collect these data points that you see on the screen along with some other things, because we want to know if our goal is to divert you out of the criminal justice system and into the mental health care system, are we doing that? And so we want them to collect that, and we want to know, are we reducing and limiting uses of force? So we collect that data as well. Now, along those goals, you can see some of the successes we've had up there, and I'll touch on the last couple because that's one of the things that we really want to highlight is we're, in these interactions, we're between 4 and 5% of these crisis interactions where an arrest is made, which means about 95 to 96% of the time somebody's actually getting plugged into the proper level of care. And I wish I could tell you how much of a reduction that is. The unfortunate part of that is this number is not super scientific because prior to this program, we weren't tracking that data. I can tell you as a law enforcement officer for over 20 years that without this resource, I know that number would have been higher because there would have been times where you would have been like, they don't need to go to jail, but it's the only option I have. So we actually have had a reduction even in that this year. We had the overall percentages around 4.5, but in the calendar year 2025, we only were going to jail 4% of the time, which is excellent. And then use of force is being used only 2.5% of the time. And that is even low levels of uses of force. Like we track everything. So if we have to kind of wrestle with somebody to take them somewhere to get them help, but there's nothing really serious about that use of force, we still document it and it still shows up on our report. So when I say uses of force, most of our uses of force are not even serious. They don't create injury or anything like that. And one thing is through the education we're providing with officers is we're actually learning case law on when it is okay to use force in crisis situations That might sound weird, but the reason it's important is because historically the thought process behind a police officer was, I can only use force on somebody who's under arrest, so then once I have to escalate to this level, then I have to take them to jail. So it's important because we can actually realize that we can use things to bring them to a proper level of care and not go, well, now that I've done this, I have to do this. Now we know that we have other options. So even if it gets unfortunate and we have to use some level of force, we can actually still divert to the proper level of care. All right, let's talk about group violence intervention for a little bit. So these are old numbers. This was stuff that we put together when we were first planning this program back in 2021. But you can see there were drastic increases in gunshot victims. This is both fatal and non-fatal. And you see that there was a huge rise in the average. And this is Nashville, Tennessee data. It's our city. So we saw a huge rise after 2020 in these interactions. And we saw that the homicide stayed relatively the same over the past 5 years, but we're still seeing a lot of uptick in those violent crimes. And there's a lot of different things we were doing differently in police work. Like we were kind of transitioning out of an older proactive model, which proactive policing has its place, but as somebody who's been here for a while, I will say that we did probably overdo it a little while in the late 2015 to 2019 range. And so we wanted to look at ways that we could actually help the community lower violence without as much police presence. So intergroup violence intervention. That was whenever we started partnering with, you'll hear from Lori later, but we started partnering with Lori and the folks at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York and the National Network for Safe Communities. And what you're looking at there, you're probably just saying there's a bar graph with no explanation. Well, here it comes. So what you're looking at there is this is actually data from Nashville, Tennessee. Lori and her coworkers and colleagues at National Networks of Safe Communities came in, helped us do a problem analysis to see who was committing the violent crime in Nashville. And the idea behind GVI is that a large percent of our violent crime is being committed by individuals who are tied to a low percentage of the population, certain groups. So what you're seeing is population on the left, violence on the right. So 33% are definitely involved in certain group members that are involved in groups during the data that we analyzed. 15 are likely. So you're looking at almost 50% of the violent crime are tied to certain groups that we identified, but those groups represent only less than 1%, less than 1/4% of the population. So the idea is we can reduce police involvement in communities if we start focusing on the individuals that we know are responsible for violent crime. And the way we do that is we don't just focus on them to go, we got to prosecute them and get them off the street. We want to focus, and just like we heard earlier, we want to give them a different path. We want to give them a message that the violence will stop. We'll just go past that slide. There's nothing on it, and for time's sake, I won't go explain that web that you just looked at, but that's part of our data analysis, how we're identifying people. But we want to present a message, and the police department wants to partner with community leaders, credible messengers, and service providers, because we want to say, hey, we need the violence to stop. We would rather it stop via someone taking a different path. Now, if I delivered that message all by myself as a law enforcement officer, it sounds a lot like stop the violence or else. Because part of the message is that the police department, if violence doesn't stop, will do what the police department does. We have to investigate crimes. There are penalties for crimes. We do impose those penalties. But I don't want my message to be stop the violence or else. I want it to be, we want you to stop the violence, and here's how we would love to help. Talk to our partners at the Urban League. Talk to our partners in the Public Health Department. They will get you into job placement. They will get you into programs that'll help you choose that different path. And that's what we are very excited about and want to do in that. Did I lose my PowerPoint? Here we go. The way we do that, which actually, are you going to talk about call-ins and things like that on yours, or? Okay, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I still got like 10 minutes up here. So the way we do that, we deliver these messages in very focused ways. And the way that we've been doing it mostly in Nashville with Sergeant Zulo has been doing a lot of this. Raise your hand, Sergeant Zulo. Sergeant Zulo, yes, please do that. Because what a lot of people don't realize, I get to stand up here and say all these wonderful things, but the real work's being done at that table over there. You guys need to know that. So custom notifications, what we do is that message I just talked about where we go out with community partners, Sergeant Zulo and one of the officers that works in our division will go out with members of the Urban League, members of the Health Department. They'll deliver these messages to individuals that we have identified as someone who is likely going to is going to be involved in a shooting, whether they are the shooter or the person who is shot. Either way, we don't want that happening. So we want to reach out to them in a predictive model to maybe, hopefully, prevent that from happening. So they're going to deliver those messages in homes. Sometimes we've delivered them when people were incarcerated so that they can call us whenever they get out of jail, because we want to give them that help. The call-in is delivering that message on a more broad scale. There'd be more people that come to a centralized location. We've actually not done that yet in Nashville. We're planning that. Jarrell and Glenn are doing a lot of work to try to get one of those together where we can give that message en masse. But we want to reduce violent crime in Nashville without a need for arrest. We've done that. Now, I can't say that the reduction in violent crime in Nashville is all our fault. There are a lot of divisions of our police department that are working really hard to keep the streets safe, and they should definitely get all the credit that they deserve on that as well. But the fact of the matter is, violent crime over the past year, and since we've started doing GVI, has seen a reduction. So, we do believe we play a small part in that. Lori's going to present a little bit of data from Nashville that shows some recidivism rates that we've seen from people we've been in contact with, and it's really encouraging. Another thing is our partnership with community organizations. This is something that historically the police department hasn't done a lot of. I'm not going to say we haven't done it. There's always been partnerships between police and community. But police, I like to use this example. Police are oftentimes like lifeguards. And so if you figure we're pulling people out of a river, and if you picture that river as just a life of violence or violent crime, then we're only coming in there when you have fallen in there, and we pull you out. And the way we pull you out is usually arrest and incarceration. Unfortunately, historically, that's the way it's been. But we weren't going upstream to see why people are falling in that river. And so that's what these community partnerships do, is the police department is now trying to move upstream a little bit, predict when someone might fall in, and get them before they actually fall in that river, and we have to pull them out later in a more negative interaction. When we do our custom notifications in the field, one thing I tell people, because look, sometimes you go into neighborhoods that have experienced recent violence, and a police officer walks around and people look at you a little, all right, what's he doing? And if I'm walking around with Otis, they might be like, why is Otis with this guy? So we're not there to just provide security. Otis is grown. He knows the streets. He can get in there and be safe. We're there to show that we're there as a partnership. And I told, just in one of our recent interactions, I was talking to a young man. I said, hey, I'd much rather have these interactions where you and I are talking about ways we can help than you have to come into contact with me or one of my colleagues later, and it's much more negative in everybody's mind. We want to have these positive interactions. We've seen a lot of buy-in from different sections of our police department. If there's two things that police officers hate, it's the way things are and change. So when you start a new program, sometimes there's pushback. But now that different divisions have seen the effectiveness of it, people will reach out to our office quite a bit and say, hey, can you reach out to this individual? We're sharing intelligence, and we're analyzing data and try to identify the best individuals that we can focus our efforts on in order to reduce violence in Nashville. And not only that, but just to make their lives better. Because, that's what it is. It's not just, hey, let's just make the city safer, but if the individuals that were out there committing crimes now can lead happier, safer, more effective lives and be productive members of our society, and they can join our partnerships. So that's some data stuff from a police department thing. I didn't know I had stuff flying in like that. I get too high tech sometimes. Yeah, so that's kind of the goal of what we want to do with GVI. That's why we're all here, is so that we can strengthen those partnerships, strengthen our role in the community, because a police department does not serve over a community. We serve alongside a community, and we want to share that ownership with you guys. So thank you very much. I believe I'm out of time, so I'm going to turn this back over to Glenn.
Thank you, Captain Brooks, but I think I could have gave you 50 points, sir, so no. Whenever you're ready. Next, we have Ms. Sharika Scales with the award ceremony.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharika Scales. I am the program specialist for the Group Violence Intervention Program at the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. Thank you all for joining us today as we continue this important conversation around community safety and violence prevention. At this time, we would like to recognize a group of individuals whose work continues to make a real impact across our community. In recognition of their unwavering dedication to public service and commitment to community safety through integrity and leadership, these individuals have helped build a safer Davidson County. Please join me in recognizing the award recipients. Let's have a round of applause for Captain Anthony Brooks. Welcome back. Let's have a round of applause for Captain Rachel Reese Fox. The one and only Glenn Hancock, Jr. Lieutenant Kimberly Anson. Lieutenant DeAndrea Payne. Lionel Matthews, Jr. Sergeant Brian Zulo. Jarrell Summers. Let's give another round of applause for all of our honorees. We thank you for your continued service and the impact you make in our communities each and every day. Thank you. Before we conclude, there's one special person we would like to recognize on their special day. Could we please have Tempest Utley to the stage, please? Today, we celebrate not only your leadership and contributions to the Urban League, but also you. We appreciate all that you do. On the count of 3, can everyone join me in singing happy birthday? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Thank you, and thank you all for joining us today for the first annual Group Violence Intervention Conference.
Our next speaker, Lori Owen, is the Director of Law Enforcement and Public Safety Partnerships at the National Network of Safe Communities. Lori serves as NNSC's national lead on how law enforcement and justice systems partners engage in violence reduction. In this role, she provides technical assistance, training, and strategic guidance to agencies across the country, ensuring their approaches are effective, evidence-based, and aligned with community priorities. In Laura's time in NNSC, she has spent much of her experience managing challenging sites, overseeing problem analysis, as well as developing site strategies and implementation plans. She also provides supervision to teams and strategizes with the teams to address the challenging dynamics of violence in our cities. She has developed several training courses for law enforcement around intelligence gathering and sanctioning. And she has a passion about enhancing legitimacy, procedural justice, and transparency for police. Ms. Owens holds a master's degree from the University of Cincinnati in criminal justice and a master's in social work from Fordham University. She's a co-author of a book, She Heals, about recovering from trauma. Please put your hands together for Lori Owen.
Thank you. I'm 5'3", in case you were wondering, and I'm a Scorpio. Just wanted to get that out of the way. So also, the captain took most of my material, so I'm just gonna give you guys what I can out of this. So I might just skip through some slides. It's okay, though. I guess I did a good job teaching him how to do this. So the National Network for Safe Communities, that's who we are. And a lot of times you're gonna hear people talk about focused deterrence in GVI, and I would like to say that, GVI is focused deterrence, but there's a lot of focused deterrence out there that is really not GVI, and I think it's important to clear up a few things. So this is not a police strategy, this is a partnership. And this partnership, when done right, can dramatically reduce violence in communities. And that is done by a credible community message against violence. So basically, we're saying to people that we want them safe, alive, and free. We also want to give a real message about what consequences are for violence. And obviously, we all know that you can be injured by a bullet, but a lot of times people don't know what the real risk is for prison time or getting longer sentences for different things. So what we want to be able to do is give people information so that they can use that information to make decisions for their lives. The other thing that we want to do is make a credible offer of help. And we talk a lot about credibility, and that means when we make an offer of help, when someone reaches out, we have to make sure that we follow through on it. So we really are going to talk a lot about community today, and I won't go on about it, but essentially, we really want to strengthen the community's capacity to prevent violence. This is not about arresting our way out of it. That doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It's also about not just giving people things and assuming that if we do that, that's going to make change. What we really have to do is empower the community. We want to improve overall public safety, but we also want to do that while minimizing arrest and incarceration. We don't want to be locking up young Black and brown men. And a little stat we were talking about earlier, Sasha, who's my boss over here, she's the ED at the National Network, is that 0.6%, easy for me to say, of the population is Black men, but they are victimized in 50% of homicides. So if you think about that and you think about our communities, what that looks like, it's something that we really need to prioritize. And that's why it's so important to strengthen these communities. The other thing is that we know that resources are limited. So as much as we are able, we want to operate within the existing frameworks that are available. So that means, yes, we want to use law enforcement, but we want to use them strategically. Yes, we do have all these programs, but we want to be able to connect people and give them the connections and the soft handoff so that they can be successful, because a lot of these people have been failed by systems in the past. So here's the general framework. It's an operational approach, okay? This is not a program, it doesn't come and go. This is a way of thinking about and talking about violence in our communities. But what we really want to do is enhance legitimacy of law enforcement, and that comes from breaking away from the past practices, right? We talk about arresting our way out of it. This is really about being strategic. We know that most communities aren't dangerous. When we talk about the small numbers, and I know that the captain mentioned it, but even nationally, 0.6% of the population is driving over 50% of the homicides. So when we think about that, and we think about that small number of people is also represented as victims. They're perpetrators and victims. It could be day to day, but they're one and the same. So what we really want to do is we want to kind of do something different than what we've been doing, and that is what this is about. So we know the communities aren't dangerous, right? That small number of people in the community, we have to give them our attention, but the community itself is not dangerous. We also have to be honest with ourselves about what trauma and victimization has done and how we can help work with that population in a way that acknowledges that and addresses it. We want people safe, alive, and free. So the thing about this work is when it's done with a strong partnership, it works pretty quickly. And we've been able to do some great things here in Nashville, and I will get to that a little bit down the road because I want to cover some other things first. But essentially, we want to think about communities that have been harmed. We want to be able to go into them. We want to be able to offer help. We want to be able to explicitly focus on homicides and violence, right? Here's the thing. If you want to reduce violence, you have to focus on violence. And that sounds really simple, but a lot of times we focused on everything around it but violence. We've talked about, all these different theories and strategies, but if we're not talking about violence, then we're really not going to be able to have an impact on it. So this is what the partnership looks like. So the project manager here, Jarrell, is kind of the seat of the stool. And we call it a three-legged stool because each leg is important, right? They have to be equal in size. It's not a law enforcement-led thing. It's not just community, but it is a partnership with law enforcement, community moral voices, and support and outreach. And so when we talk about the law enforcement partnership, it's not just police, right? We're looking at juvenile systems, corrections, parole, code enforcement, all of these different partners. On the community side, though, we think about parents, principals, coaches, people that are doing street outreach, people that are credible in the community. And also on the service side, we're looking at social workers, the CBOs, all of the people at the Urban League that are going out and doing all of this great work and offering people the support that they need. Same thing with the health department. Everyone that is here that works at those agencies is connecting people with resources every single day. So we talk about this community moral message. What we really are trying to do is help communities to be able to give a message to people around what the community norms are going to be going forward, right? It's not just saying stop or else. It's about saying the community doesn't want violence. We want everyone to be a part of the community. We want them to be safe in that community. We want to make that offer of help genuine. And we want to be honest again about what the legal consequences are for further violence. It's really that simple. So when we talk about these groups, I think it's important to chat about this a bit. So all gangs are groups, but not all groups are gangs. And we talk a lot about groups and gangs kind of interchangeably, but really what we're seeing is that these are not organized gangs. They don't have a hierarchy. They may not even have a name for themselves, but they're groups of people that are hanging out together. They're engaging in a whole bunch of different activities, and they're also driving violence. And so it's not about money. It's not about drugs. It's really about disrespect, and it's really about using violence as a tool to solve problems. If that's the tool that you have in your toolbox, that's what you're going to go to. So people that use violence in the streets, they use it in their homes. It's just a way of operating, and when we can help people have some other things in their toolbox, then they have something else to use besides violence. Even within these groups, we are not talking about a whole lot of violent people. And I know that the captain gave some numbers, but it was about 500 people, I believe, that we identified as being the most likely to kill or be killed in the city of Nashville. When you think about the population here, which I think is about 800,000, that's actually a very, very small number. So thinking about violence as this giant problem when really it's a small number of people. And so even within the groups that are violent, most of the people are not violent. And so we have to really understand what's going on. We have to talk about violence. We have to talk about it in a way that we can take information and get out ahead of shootings, right? If an incident happens, we want to work through it. We want to talk about it. We want to understand it. We want to know what's going on the street so that we can deploy our credible messengers, we can offer help, we can give resources, and whatever it takes to get people to do something different. So the thing is that this violence, I mean, it's boy-girl stuff. It's all the things that we know that people get into when they're young, and really it's concentrated really disproportionately in communities, and it's really focusing on young Black and brown men. And so what we really want to do is help eliminate some of that risk and offer the support so that people can do something different. And again, this is the national averages for all of our cities that we're working with, but as the captain said, it's actually even more concentrated in Nashville. So the traditional responses have been this law enforcement, kind of heavy-handed, we can arrest our way out of it. It's also this kind of focus on root causes. And before anybody comes for me, I'm not saying we don't care about root causes. We definitely care about them. But in the context of violence, it really is that we have to talk about violence. And so if we can support communities and strengthen the communities and their capacity, then we can help drive down violence in that. And it's not about what we give people. And just as a kind of side note, we did do a bit of a study on this in Philly. And one of the things that we found was that when we go out and we do messaging, the kind of messaging that the captain was talking about, having one contact can drive down violence in those groups over 35%. So this is low-hanging fruit, people. We can get out and have conversations and drive down violence, and it's that simple. When we have 2 or more engagements with those groups, it's over 50%. So the thing is that we rely on the police department to identify people that are drivers of violence, right, or potential victims of violence, and then we can get out there, we can have conversations with them. And we can have really, really dramatic results by doing that. And that's why the power of partnership is so important, because it's not just about the police going out. It's about, offering help. It's about following up. It's about relentless engagement, right? It's not relentless pursuit. It's about relentlessly engaging the people that need it and helping them to get what they need. Because most of them have been failed in the past by systems, by government systems, by social service systems, by all these systems. And so when we can connect with them in a meaningful way, and we can mentor them, and we can wrap them up, and we can make them feel like part of the community, we can have an impact in their lives. So the thing is this, and I know that Captain Brooks kind of touched on it because he did steal a lot of my material, but the thing about this partnership is, when law enforcement goes out, it's an opportunity for people to have a conversation with law enforcement that they have never had before, right? Most of the time when the police are showing up, it's not somebody's worst day. But now we can go out and have these conversations where people can ask questions. People can meet Sergeant Zulo and see that he's just another person. He's a father and a brother and someone who wants all the same things in life. And we can make those connections for people, and then we can connect them with Sherelle and Glenn and people that are able to bring service to them, Otis. We're able to have a really big impact, and it's not about spending a whole ton of money and giving people a whole bunch of things. It's really about just wrapping them up. Bear with me a second. So again, I think it's important as we talk about this kind of three-pronged approach that we kind of break it down. We talk a lot about these community moral voices, and a lot of what we really want from community is for community to be able to use that informal social control. And I give this example all the time, and the people that have spent this week with me are probably sick of hearing it, but I'm a coach. And so as a coach, I coach a lot of young boys, or teenage boys. And so sometimes when they're getting into trouble, a parent or a teacher will come to me and say, hey, this kid's not acting right. Can you talk to him? Can you do something? And the thing is that I can, because I'm in a unique position that I can say, hey, if you don't knock it off, if you don't do something different, you're gonna be sitting the bench, right? What that also does is makes their teammates say, hey, knock it off, we need you. So it's really in that simple way, but we can replicate that in communities so easily by understanding who in the community are those influentials, who are those voices that people are going to listen to, and we can partner with them. And when we do, it makes the message so much more impactful, and it also gives people that engagement that we talked about, that relentless engagement, wrapping people up, making them make a different choice. So the communication, I think it's kind of important because, I know that the captain talked about customs. And, sometimes we talk about these things really simply and just assume people know what we're talking about. But the way that it works is we identify people that we think are most likely to kill or be killed. And then what we do is we give them the message. And again, it's not just about saying we want them safe, alive, and free, but it's about talking with them about their risk for victimization, their risk for being part of this criminal justice system, and also letting them know that we're not just offering them services, but we're going to prioritize them. We're going to help them access those services, and whatever it takes, right? It's the difference between me sliding someone a business card and saying, hey, if you want something, go ahead and call, or sitting down with someone and saying, I will help you with this application if that's what you need right now. Tell me what you need today. Not, hey, we can give you all these things. Because at the end of the day, if they're laying their head down at night and they're afraid of a bullet coming through their window, or they're walking up and down the street looking over their shoulder all the time, they don't really want to talk to you about jobs, right? So we have to be able to talk to people, meet them where they're at, and help them to really see what we can do to change their lives. And so the reality, though, is that we also have to be honest with them about what their risk looks like. And, Sasha and I have talked about this before, but, a lot of times young people, when they do get arrested, they'll say, I didn't know that I could get this much time for what I'm doing. I didn't know that this is really where it ends up. And so the thing is we can tell them, we can be honest with them about what risk looks like and what it means if they do get in trouble. And so I think when people have that information and it's given to them in a really clear way, they can make a different choice. The other thing is that, when we can also understand what it is that they need, not tell them what they need, right? We're not going out and saying, hey, we're gonna give you X, Y, and Z. We're gonna go and say, what is it that you need? Where do you want your life to go? And then we can partner with them and we can help them achieve that. I don't know why it turned off. Okay, so essentially this is kind of the flow chart of GVI. We identify in real time the small number of people that are driving violence, and we do that with the police department, right? So it's not just data, right? It's about taking an incident, a shooting incident, breaking it down, and understanding what could come from it, right? And also creating deliverables around it. Not just we're talking about violence because we want to solve a case, but what can we take from that incident to get out ahead of the next incident? And when we identify people that we think need to hear a message, and this custom message that we talk about, it's custom because we customize it to the person that we're talking to based on what the need is. So if it's a retaliation risk, we're going to talk to them about not retaliating. If it's, hey, you were in the background of a drill rap video and we think that someone might be coming for you, we can help them. So a lot of it is understanding exactly what the risk looks like for them, opening up those lines of communication, right? figuring out where they're going to be, how we can make contact with them. And that's also something that the police department does, right? They figure out where they are, how we can make that contact. And then it's about going out and establishing those clear standards, right? This is what your risk looks like. We're saying that we are here to help you, and we are absolutely going to help you. But at the end of the day, we're going to stop you if you make us do that, because that's really what this is about. And so we also want to be able to say, you know, these are the things that we can offer. We will sit with you. We will work with you. We will continue to show up, right? So we do that initial conversation with them. But after that, this is where all of the people at the Urban League and the health department continue to engage them. It's not a one and done. Sometimes they need to hear from you 3 or 4 or 5 times before they finally say, today's the day I want to do something different. And then at the end of the day, there is a small number of people that are going to persist no matter what we say. And unfortunately, you know, as a last resort, we do have to give them consequences. So the thing is this, when we talk about data, we talk about numbers, we talk about all the things, this is really how it works. And this is the numbers for a lot of the cities that we work in. I want you to take a look at the bottom, 87%. That's Nashville. And those numbers are the people that were custom. And it's from beginning of time when we started customs all the way through. And Sergeant Zulo spent a lot of time going back and looking at each one of them to see where they're at now. And 87% of them did not recidivate. They did not get rearrested for a violent crime. That's huge. And that shows the impact of those messages. And so I want to just take that moment to just celebrate that, because that's huge. There's another city that we're working in, and we did put it up there, Philly, 35%. When we first started working with them back in 2021, their homicides were well over 500. Last year, they were just over 200. So those are lives that we're really saving by doing this work, and I'm excited to keep doing this work with you all. And if you have any questions, I will be here all day.
Let's give Ms. Lori Orn another round of applause. All right, we're going to have a change in the order of the program. We're going to eat next. So please receive Mr. Thomas Hunter to do the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for those who have spoke before us. We ask your guiding hand to be over all of the connections that you are orchestrating today, and let those things bear fruit. Dear Lord, thank you for this food that we are about to receive, for the nourishment of our body. For Christ's sake, amen.
At the university, the food was excellent. All right, our next speaker, Dr. Phyllis D.K. Hildrich, JD, is a seasoned educator, advocate, artist, and public curator who now seeks to serve Metro youth through realizing their Office of Youth Safety. OYS activates civic and community investments to increase youth safety and decrease youth exposure to violence through strategic countywide focus on Metro youth, My Safe Spaces, Safe Play, and Safe Problem Solving. Dr. Hildrich earned her undergraduate degree in biology from Harvard University, law degree from the University of Maryland, and a Master's of Arts in Conflict Management from Lipscomb University, and her continuing studies in parenting from 2 grown children and assorted grandpets. All right. Please give a round of applause to Dr. Phyllis Hildrich.
Good afternoon. I have the unenviable task of trying to bring focus and attention back after this scintillating morning we had with so much information, and then this excellent good food that I hope you enjoyed. I did not eat because I can't eat before I'm about to go on. So as protocol has been established, I do want to thank the Urban League, President Harris, for convening this, supporting this, and also giving the foundational information that I want to co-sign and adopt completely in terms of why we are here and what we are here to do with communities, and I will not repeat any of that. I also want to recognize and thank this great institution, Meharry Medical College, which is celebrating its sesquicentennial 150th anniversary this year. I want to thank its president, Dr. James E.K. Hildreth, for leading this institution, providing this space, and also letting me use its parking space as I got here a little late earlier. And no, my height is of no consequence. I didn't play any sport well. I'm old enough that when I was running track in college, it was the quarter mile, not the 400, which I did briefly and badly, but it actually leads to one of my favorite metaphors that I think does have resonance for what we're going to do today, and that is, if you run the 400, you're eventually going to be on the mile relay, right? And so the passing zone and the very shorter, faster races, the passing happens so quickly. It's important, but you can't always see it. It slows down so that you understand that that passing zone is longer. And there's a period of time when both the second and the third leg are running together at the same speed, both sharing the baton, holding the work together. I hope that that is a useful metaphor to start this presentation when you think about, you've just heard about very formal structures of GVI that are heavily law enforcement inflected. And we share a baton that I now want to snatch and move in some other directions as we look at what else can we do with and for youth safety. So if all of the things work, here we are. Okay. The Office of Youth Safety was born from youth-led advocacy in Davidson County as a direct response to the rising threat of gun violence, funded by Metro Council, enacted by Mayor Freddie O'Connell through Executive Order 53 in 2024, and officially activated just 1 year ago in May 2025. OIS unites Metro systems, private resources, and community partners to create safe, nurturing environments for and in co-governance with Metro youth from middle school age through 24. We know that's a big span, so it's like 10-year-olds to up to 25 is about 15 years. 3 different developmental cohorts, but what do they have in common? That is the zone at which you leave that part of your young life when somebody always should be holding your hand and looking out to you. Where you have a little bit of independence that is growing into full independence, because by the time you hit 25, we expect you to pay your bills, get where you need to go, do what you need to do all on your own as a grown-up. And it takes, particularly in this culture and these times, an awful lot to be able to make that transition. And so what do we do in that space? It's the responsibility of metropolitan government to use evidence-based, people-informed approaches to preventing violence, particularly gun violence, while promoting positive youth development and fostering safe and thriving communities. This is Mayor O'Connell speaking the preamble of Executive Order 53. And there you have pictured, and I always like to start this conversation visibly recognizing the young people who made this happen. Members of the Varsity Spending Plan who work with the Southern Movement Committee advocated before our Metro Council in June of 2024 and also June of 2025. Their public testimonies are recorded and available to the public. This picture is drawn from that, and I'm mentioning that because we are committed to practicing youth safety in all ways in which we work, and so we want to assure the youth and assure you that we have permission when we use their likenesses, and that we're going to be careful as we elicit from them their opinions about what they want and need. So with that tremendous start, where are we? We talked about our youth, that is the age span. We have approximately 130,000 youth in this county that is 562 square miles, 26 square miles large. By context, Maryland, where I went to law school, practiced as a baby juvenile court public defender for a while, same population size, 80 square miles. So what does it mean when we have this vast physical expanse that we have to cover and accommodate as we are looking at what youth, where youth are, what they need, and what we can do to support them? Our youth, I'm so excited to be able to share this slide with you. This was produced by the newest member of our team. There are only two of us, Dr. Peter Valier, who is present here. Peter. Data architect, sociologist, policy analyst, and also one of the prime authors of the Driving While Black data study. Captain Brooks kind of alluded to there were different ways in which we were policing previously, and we as a community came together, looked at the data, made some decisions, and this team over here helped do that. So turning those skills and that knowledge of this community into our data, we looked at the published MMPD data for fatal and non-fatal shootings in all of calendar year 2025 and year to date this year. And that's the hot shot. Those are the counties that have the highest level of gun violence measured by fatal and non-fatal shootings. 5 zip codes have over 50%. So over 25% of our youth are living in those 5 zip codes. When we add the next 5 down, I think the number goes up to about 45% of our youth for what would be 80%. So the map is important. We heard excellent theory this morning, but when you're thinking about working with existing resources, as we were urged to do earlier, we have to figure out how do we focus and serve, move towards or move youth through those corridors. By way of context, I would just like to share with you the discrete paragraphs from the executive order. If we just read these, think about what you have heard and what you're going to hear going forward. It will give us all an opportunity to think together about what it actually means to use this Office of Youth Safety to accomplish the joint desired goals of violence reduction and interruption in our community. You'll see a letter in front of them because that's the order in which it appears to the order. I changed them up because I think you're going to see there's a different logic. So go with me. Our charge is to gather and assess how Metro government departments can build safer communities for youth in ways that reduce the harmful interactions with the criminal justice system. Through the last 11 months of assessing our strengths, we have noticed that there is great capacity in Metro government. And I'm a little hesitant to focus on the word silos because if anybody knows what a grain silo is, what is a silo? It's this big vertical, strong structure that frequently holds the nourishment of a community against all kinds of threats. So there is a way in which silos are very important and we want to support their integrity, but we also want to provide connections between them. So when we're looking at the Metro systems and services and departments that are youth-facing, that can be brought together, we want to figure out how we can make the connections between them. Next. Support the development of evidence-based, people-informed, anti-violence initiatives within Metro government departments as part of a comprehensive effort to promote youth safety and well-being. Evidence-based. Data is very important to us. It points us towards the deeper questions. It does not necessarily provide the answers, and we want to give that caveat up front, because ultimately what we know as people and what we do as people is more important than what the naked data alone says. The people-informed anti-violence initiatives, I think, are a combination of the good GVI work that you have tested, proved, and have currently in operation. And it also needs to go hand in hand with what our communities are telling us they have seen work, what feels like it works to them, and what makes sense in that part of the map I showed you. Because there's some things that look good, feel good, walk good in 37208 that would not begin to work in 37013 because all kinds of reasons. And I got a head nod, thank you so much, right? So that part, we're looking at that. Next, pilot, assess, and promote programming to prevent conflicts from escalating into gun violence and equip youth with conflict resolution skills. That's that safe problem solving we talked about, with a focus separate from the criminal justice system. So one of the members of our informal co-governance team that guides the work that we do in youth safety is our clerk of court, juvenile clerk of court, the award recipient that you saw earlier, Mr. Linnell Matthews, and he is juvenile court. That used to be my old stomping ground in another jurisdiction. We see eye to eye, we speak the same language, we understand the same things, but for, again, back to when silos do matter, we let the court-involved work be that. What does it mean for us in the Office of Youth Safety over here to start from the premise that what we're really doing is just raising our kids together? You've heard it said that healed people heal people. What if safe youth are safe youth? What if we do for all children what many of us in this room have struggled and sacrificed to do for the children that we bore and raised? You know what I'm talking about. That moving them from this class to this class and picking up that second job to pay for toe shoes, etc. Yes, that's, you'll see on the resume that I was an adjunct professor at some point at University of Baltimore. No, baby, that was a second job, making sure I had the money to do the other things for the youth, because you understand, right? What happens when we bring that kind of energy to all of our children? What if violence prevention is cushioning what happens to a growing nervous system when you're exposed to environment of shots fired, when you're exposed to the fact that your neighbor or somebody else, or we heard there was a school shooting, is my school next? Because if we think about it in that term, then every school-age child in Nashville was affected by gun violence the last time there was a shooting in one of our schools, right? So I know I'm going off script, don't want to go off time, but you see where we're going here. So a focus separate from the criminal justice system is not what do we do now that they've been arrested? Are we going to have a diversion or not? What do we do now that there's been adjudication? Will there be detention, or will there be an alternative program? A focus separate from the criminal justice system is how do we raise our babies, no matter who they are. Next, develop relationships with leaders of existing restorative justice initiatives within Metro government departments, Metro Nashville Public Schools, and independent agencies, and incubate a restorative justice program as needed. So there's a lot in there. I'm just going to say briefly that one of the opportunities that I think we understood early on in our first year of operation is that defining a lane that's not really having anybody running in it much right now and staying in that lane is the best way for all of us to help everybody. Metro Public Schools, well-defined, well-organized, huge capacity, huge need, figuring things out. We know Dr. Battle is figuring it out because scores are going up, violence is going down, opportunity is blooming, and there isn't always a lot of time in their schedule to add some of these new things that we've been talking about. And so that is why you're going to hear us really emphasize the movement towards third space. What is third space? If first space is home and second space for us adults is work, or school for the youth, then third space is that everywhere else. I'm just hanging out. I'll meet you at the cafe. Let's go to the skate park. Maybe we go see a movie. That's third space. The question that we are asking and have been answering for the last 12 months is what is the Metro-funded landscape of third spaces in this county, and how can we use the good work that is already there to go forward? And then finally, to use data and research, and we covered that, and absolutely. So what is our ethos? 2 simple things that I will not back off from, that our co-governance team will not let us back off from the young lady that you saw testifying in the first slide deserves, and that is we must center youth voice. Period, hard stop. So I have a question. If you don't mind raising your hand, how many of us in this room are under the age of 25? Mr. Hall, okay. Right? I would submit to you that's a problem, because we have all this great information in here, and we have all these great ideas, and many of our ideas, they're informed by the literature, an evidence-based program. And you know what? They're also informed by, because when I was raised, or for some of us, when I raised my children, can I just get all of us, self-included, to recognize that none of that is relevant to what our kids are facing today, because the world is different. What youth need may not be different, but what we all have to work with is. And the context of what else is getting in their way to get to the basic things we need are invisible to many of us who are not living and working in that youth space right now. And so for that reason, we need them as subject matter experts in every single room at every stage of development, implementation, and evaluation in terms of what works. And if we don't have a good, safe, ethical way to regularly hear from youth voice, we're missing something important. The second is to hold space for and stay accountable to co-governance. Co-governance is a concept that is burgeoning in so many jurisdictions. It was an act of co-governance that brought this office into being. There were 2 elected officials, one of whom was a council member who was also budget chair in those 2 years. Community-based nonprofit advocacy organization, and other members of the community. What does it mean for that to be the board or a group that is similarly composed to constantly be checking in on this governmental entity to make sure that it is remaining faithful to its purpose? That's a really messy question. We are building that plane as we fly it. We are working on it every day. We are growing, and I believe that there's much more growth ahead, but you have to be committed to the principle. Just because it's hard doesn't mean that it's not right. So that's our ethos. What are our standards? The way that we show up and work every day is we start with relationships. Who are you? How are you doing? When are you meeting? Can we come sit in on your meeting? Is this public, right? And their heads nodding in here. I don't want to get the shout outs because I'm going to miss somebody, but many of you have been gracious to invite us into your space, into your meetings, with the youth groups that you have already, thinking about the work that isn't even set and isn't even public yet, so that we can begin to understand how each other works, trust each other, and see opportunities that might be in each other's blind spots, right? The second is communication. How do we communicate between silos where there hasn't been the communication before? Is that data sharing? Is that setting up, oh, heaven forbid, new meetings? All right, we have too many meetings, but are there any other ways to get around that? Is it publishing whatever information can be public, make it public, and go forward? We want to continue to work with that horizontally and also across generations in all directions, because it leads to the other inputs we talked about. Currencies of integrity, reliability, presence, and persistence. Just screenshot that and keep it and go back. Each word stands on its own, and we serious about that life, right? And methodological rigor and discipline. If relationships are more like agricultural cultivation, at some point when we are actually building programs and doing work and setting up structures, we need the engineering precision and rigor that makes it comfortable for you to drive across that bridge every day, right? Because you don't want kind of, sort of, well, they meant well, when that math is not correct for those structures that you put your life in. The same thing is happening here. We have to build something that will meet those standards of rigor and discipline as we're doing the other things. So the briefest schematic that Peter and I have been wrestling with the last couple of days is our work really helping, supporting, and standing alongside of both individual youth, systems, processes that will do these things: protect, prevent, interrupt, and repair. Part of that starts with asking our youth for a positive vision. What's safety mean to you? What is it like to live a good, free life and be safe? Because if they have something that matters to them, then we can start talking about, what do you need to learn how to protect that? What could threaten it? And how could we prevent those things that could threaten that goodness that you want, right? And even though we try to prevent it, it's about to go down. How do we stop it? Sometimes, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes it's just me. If I see that email one more time, because I'm in recovery, I have anger issues, right? How do I interrupt even my own? So what are we talking about? Social emotional awareness, my own emotional awareness. I'm not going to answer emails from some people. I'm not going to read them after 5 p.m. I'm going to have a good night's sleep, get up in the morning, we will deal with it then, because it'll be a different Phyllis responding to it, right? That was a skill of interruption. How can we do that? Where should we do that? And then repair. Damage happens. Damage has happened already. There are some institutions that some of us just don't feel good about. There are some places we're not going to go. How do we repair that? Then there's harm between individuals, and we want to teach those skills. So I'm about 1 minute left. I'm going to go past real fast. So third space landscape. I keep emphasizing Metro because you know what? All of us are already taxpayers. We are paying for all this. We have infrastructure, we have staff, we have capacity. Let's start there before we start standing up a new 501c3 that has to have a fundraising breakfast and has issues, right? I'm sorry, that was off script. So I always start with metro parks and public libraries together because they both have the space, the programming, and the experience. There are others that come alongside it. Metro Arts, the downtown district is not an entity, but everyone who wants to be on Broadway. And sometimes when our kids go down on Broadway, there are problems. They should be able to go down and enjoy the goodness that everybody else has. How do we make that safe and possible? Finally, I'm going to mention the newness that we are working on in OYS, and that is the designation of youth safety zones. We have carved up that colored space that I showed you on the previous slide, anchoring 5 different zones with each one of the top 5, and then partnering it with one of the 6 through 10, and then looking at how we can start staffing this collectively so that there is community presence, expertise, trust, credible messengers, all of that, eyes on, all of that to come back together to say, how do we do this work? And the last bit, we divided and conquered this morning because I thought that I wasn't going to be able to do the earlier meeting. Today was the very first Metro Youth Interdepartmental Work Group. Give that a hand. After 11 months, the Mayor's Chief of Operations meets regularly with the 55 departments, took the youth-facing departments, brought them together, and we will be going forward. And so if we decide that we want to have a zip code party somewhere, should we have it at the park or at the library? What's your schedule? Can this go? Can we go in? We can figure that out at that table and move forward. Closing thoughts. What are we built for? This question came up before the ice storms, well, the winter storms that hit much of our region. On NPR one morning driving in before it hit us, there was somebody from Texas Emergency Services, and they said, well, we've got all of our salt trucks out, we have our plows, we have as much. I mean, we heard the forecast, we put what we had out there, but we're not built for the kinds of storms that were forecast to come in and hit us. And we in Nashville, some of us who are out of power for 5 days or more, know what it's like to be hit by a storm that we aren't built for. So I'm asking the question, what are we as the Office of Youth Safety built for? What are we as a collective community built for? And I will leave us with the words of Lisa M. Lawson, who is the CEO of the Annie E. Casey Foundation and published in her book, Thrive. She says, youth safety requires us to open up opportunities for adolescents to practice the development of skills such as compassion and empathy, guided by and in relationship with caring adults. So, are we caring adults? If we are, I hope we are the adults who will listen to our youth. We are the adults who will get to know our youth. We are the adults who see their potential, who will help them recover from mistakes, whether it lands them in juvenile court or just gets them in trouble at home. We are the adults who will not try to judge or fix our young people, but we're just gonna love them, all right? We are the adults who teach them things that they don't know yet, and the adults who can coach them to learn and make decisions for themselves. Why? Because safety and security doesn't just happen. They are the result of collective consensus and public investment. We owe our children, the most vulnerable in our society, a life free of violence and fear. The last word by the late, great Nelson Mandela. I hope for us that these words resonate, energize, and empower the good work that we will continue to do together on behalf of Metro Youth. Thank you.
Let's give Dr. Hildreth another round of applause. Thank you so much, Dr. Hildreth. Our next presenter is Jarrell Summers. He's a committed public servant and community leader from Springville, Tennessee, currently serving as the program manager of community safety at the Metropolitan Health Department. In his role, he leads strategic initiatives designed to promote safer, healthier communities by addressing the root causes of violence and fostering sustainable, community-driven solutions. He believes that lasting change is achieved by investing in people, strengthening relationships, and creating opportunities that promote long-term success. Jarrell strives to uplift the communities he serves by fostering environments where individuals feel safe, supported, and valued. He has earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Criminal Justice with a minor in psychology from the Tennessee State University. Please put your hands together for Jarrell Summers.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? So I guess I'm the last man standing here for our Nashville unit here at Metro Public Health Department. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Harris for his great leadership here at the Urban League of Middle Tennessee. I'm not going to keep you long. I'm not going to be like a Baptist preacher and keep you to 3 o'clock. So I started this work about 3 years ago with Urban League. First got the opportunity, it was brought to me, and I was a little hesitant about doing this work at first because, for one, I didn't understand what group violence intervention was. So I had to do my research. I had to do my homework. I had to get advice from other individuals. I've always been an advocate of social work. I've been doing this work for 20 years now. And so helping the community is something I look forward doing, and I'm glad to do it. And with that said, we're gonna talk about community safety program at behavioral health and wellness through Metro Public Health Department. Sorry. At first, when Glenn said, Jarrell, I want you to present, I was a little hesitant about that as well, because you had Captain Brooks here, as well as Zulo. We had Lori give a great presentation as well about group violence intervention. And so he said, well, Jarrell, just focus on the services. Just focus on the services and the work. If anybody's been on our calls on Monday, you know Glenn always talk about the work. Let's do the work. Let's get out here and do the work. So with that said, community safety and violence prevention, the mission to provide holistic support, build strong work of community partnership, work toward a safer and more resilient community. The vision is to create a safe and supportive environment here in Nashville for individuals that have been plagued or suffered by violence. Our objective to enhance community resilience, reduce violence in Nashville-Davidson County through a two-part collaborative of group violence intervention and community violence intervention here in Nashville. So prioritize the needs of the community members and meet people where they are. You'll hear that a lot when you're out in the community. We want to meet the people where they are. If you're not comfortable going into certain communities, this probably not the work for you. Because we go into Black and brown communities that have been plagued by violence. There's also trauma in that violence. So if that's not what you want to do, if you're not comfortable, I wouldn't do this work. But also, we also have resources across a full continuum for prevention, intervention, postvention that aims and improve mental and behavioral health of well-being of residents here in Nashville and Davidson County. As you heard me say earlier, we have a two-part collaborative, which under the community safety team here in Nashville, we have group violence intervention, what you have heard all day. And we also have community violence intervention as well. Community violence intervention basically is any other violence that has been affected by the individual. So that can be domestic violence, intimate partner violence, suicide, and also overdoses as well that plays a part in that. And one thing you can't do this work alone. You're gonna need stakeholders, you're gonna need other resources. You're gonna need the government, mayor, you're gonna need the police. You're gonna need a team of people to do this work. Dr. Hildred said earlier, we can't do this working in silos. We cannot do this working in silos. You have to partnership with other individuals and other resources here in the city of Nashville. One thing that I've learned here in Nashville, there's a lot of resources, but do you know where to find them? We have a lot of resources, but do you know where to find them? And hopefully today, we can all come together and help continue to build a safer Nashville. So community violence intervention and prevention is a trauma-informed, relationship-centered strategy designed to support individuals at highest risk of violence here in Nashville. The goal, enhance community safety by engaging with local neighborhoods through outreach efforts, strengthen safe communities through partnership, like Metro Police Department, and also empower community to make positive changes. So some of the services we do provide, we have opioid systems of care, therapeutic services, resilient communities, and suicide prevention and education. So when we talk to individuals in the community, when we do custom notifications, as well as jail custom notifications, we always let them know that, hey, we have services here at Metro Public Health, and we also have services that we help out with Urban League as well. So Urban League, they have workforce development that can help some of these individuals out. We always talk about finding a job, but we want these individuals to find a career. We want them to strive here in Nashville. As you see, the city of Nashville grows every day. So we want people to be part of this workforce that help build Nashville and make it better. So with the Behavioral Health and Wellness Division, with the counseling, we have psychosocial assessments, individual counseling, crisis intervention, and referral resources. And so that referrals come to our case manager. If any individual is seeking counseling, that information is sent to, the referral is sent to our case manager, who will link them to our linkage of care with individuals doing counseling here at Metro Public Health Department. Also, we have the suicide prevention and education, reduced number of suicides in adults and youth populations. Also, increased access to resources for those who are at risk of suicide. Also, providing training to partner organizations and community members to understand the signs that someone is at risk of suicide. We also have our resilient communities, enhanced community awareness and positive childhood experiences. One thing I'll say, I'm not an expert on some of these resources, because we do have other program managers who run these programs. But this is just a little baseline of goals that we want to help put out there for everybody to see. Also, we have a youth advisory board. It consists of students from Tennessee State, Fisk University, Trevecca, Austin Peay State University, and I may be leaving one out. But you all get the point. Also, they are very excited. They are good individuals. They smart. They are always willing to, they're looking for partnerships. They're looking to do activities. So I'm in a room full of familiar faces. If anybody here has any resource fairs, job fairs, or anything that's coming up on your radar, please let us know, because they are willing and able to get out in the community and help serve the community. So keep that in mind. Here's some of the partnerships. I can talk about partnerships all day. Like I said, you can't do this work by yourself. I see some of you, some of the individuals here, Stars Nashville. We also have, I always say Urban League, Metro Public Health Department, the Police Department. We work with the Sheriff's Department, also with some of the juvenile court advocates as well. Here's some of our outreach and prevention work. I believe this was at J.C. Napier's. You can see some of our team members out there educating the community and also passing out resources. And here's a few metrics from 2025. We have number of customs we done in 2025 was 116. That's with youth and some adults, also community and in jail. I would say, I believe in 2024, we did 90 custom notifications. So this is a increase from where we started with those custom notifications. We try to reach individuals directly, but also hopefully have an impact on other individuals in those neighborhoods. Also, we adopted the walk-in one-stop from one of our colleagues, Wayne Rollins, who is the architect of the walk-in one-stop in the city of Miami. We did 3 in 2025, which was Overlook Apartments, Neely Meadows, Fallbrook Apartments, and we recently done one in Edge Hill community. And basically what we do is try to find that data that shows an uptick in crime. If that's gun violence, intimate partner violence, domestic violence, that's when we go out into these neighborhoods. And as you can see the pictures of our partnerships, we have different partnerships with resources. We go through the community and we pass out those resources. I always tell my team, just because you're giving out bags, you also have to educate the people what you're giving them. If you're giving them resources, just don't say, hey, here's some resources. What are these resources for? What can they help me with? What can they help my family? Can help me provide food, somewhere to feed my family. These are a few places we visited. There was the Ivy Project in Atlanta, the Grady Hospital. Also a peer-to-peer visit in York, Pennsylvania, which Tiff Lowe is that project manager there, and they have group violence intervention as well as a hospital-based violence program. Talked about Miami as well with Wayne Rollins and the architect of the Walk-in One Stop. We also, one thing we like to highlight is success stories with our work. So one success story is we did a custom notification with a father and a son. Both were incarcerated at the time, and we delivered the message to both of them, but as they were released from jail, they did contact us, and we were able to give them services through Metro Public Health Department, through Urban League, and any other resources they needed. And so at this time, they are striving individuals with businesses, and also was able to get some mental health services as well. Thank you. We recently received a letter from a young man who was incarcerated. One of my coworkers, Otis Carter, was able to get in contact with him at the jail, visit that jail, and he gave Otis a letter that basically saying when we came to did the custom notification the first time with him in jail, he said that really resonated with him, and it was able to basically see what he'd done wrong, because at the time when he'd done the shooting, he felt like he didn't do anything wrong. But he said as he sat and thought about what he did, he was able to basically take accountability of his actions. And he said once he's released, he's gonna seek us out for services. And hopefully we can provide those services to him, and hopefully he'll be a productive citizen of society. These are some of the resources, places we have visited, and some of the information that we receive. Some of our guidance. For one, is National Network of Safe Communities. We receive a lot of, that's our advisor, and we receive a lot of feedback. Lori came last month to visit us and was able to give us good feedback on the work that we was doing and what we need work with. Cities United, National Institute for Criminal Reform, and also the City of Brotherhood in the city of Miami. So once again, I'll say you can't do this work alone. And when you talk to individuals, if you give them positive experiences, hopefully they will have positive outcomes. You have to be intentional with the message you deliver. You can't, when you go into these communities, you have to keep going to these communities. You can't just come one time and pass out information. You have to keep coming back. If you come back by yourself, you come back with a team, or you come back with a resource fair or job fair. There's always some work to be done. And also, this work does not stop at 4:30. This work continues. Crime doesn't stop when we get off work. It continues. So with that said, I want to thank you guys for your time. I hope I said something that will resonate. Thank you.
Let's give Mr. Summers another round of applause, please. All right, our next presenter is Ms. Sharona Arlott. She's a dedicated advocate of violence prevention. She held the position of Program Director for Anti-Violence Prevention and Outreach at the Miami-Dade County Juvenile Office since 2018. During her tenure, she was instrumental in launching key initiatives like the Miami-Dade County Anti-Violence Initiative, the Group Violence Intervention Program, and the Hospital-Based Violence Intervention Program, all of which help reduce gun violence in the areas most impacted by that gun violence. Her expertise in the field has earned her speaking engagements at national conferences to share best practices throughout the nation. Ms. Lott has always been passionate about track and field. In 2016, she founded Honest Runners of North Miami, Inc., a nonprofit youth track and field program where she and her coaching staff train children aged 6 through 17. Ms. Lott holds a Master of Science degree in Justice Administration and is currently a Doctor of Education candidate with a specialized in sports administration at St. Thomas University in Miami, Florida. Please put your hands together for Ms. Sharona Lott.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for inviting me. This is my second time back, so I guess that means I did something right. Being from Miami, I wanted to show what GVI and CVI look like from the perspective of being in Miami. I wanted to come up here and play Trick Daddy. Jarrell told me, no, you can't play no Trick Daddy. However, instead of playing music, I did bring my team with me because I did not get this far without my incredible team. So they're going to come up because I'm not going to do all the talking by myself. So I have Leilani Noel, one of our social workers, Michael Coley, another social worker, Adonna Cook, one of our outreach workers, and also Brandon Dixon. So today we're going to talk about bridging the gap and how community violence intervention and law enforcement partnerships reduce violence. I am not going to drill GVI and CVI in your head. I sat back there and changed this presentation about 5 times. Just trying to make sure that I'm not regurgitating some of the information that you already heard. So viewer discretion is advised. I do have some videos in here just depicting Miami. Nothing too vulgar, but I did want you all to see how Miami is and what people think it is. I'm trying to push play. Let me see. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay. Can someone help me? Can you push play on the video?
And this is not AI. This is actually,
Oh, it's not going through, it's not start. Okay, well, in the video, it just shows where a reporter came on Miami Beach and showing the glitz and glam, and then he travels over into the neighborhoods. For whatever reason, the video won't show now, but it's okay. We've been in here long enough. So now, Leilani will talk about a transformational story.
So we've heard about GVI, we've heard about CVI. Now we're just gonna kind of get into why does it work. We've kind of detailed all the elements of it. So we wanted to start by sharing a success story. Why our work matters and who it impacts. I want to share the story of Tori. He was one of my clients actually on my caseload on the county side. He was a 26-year-old African-American male. He's the youngest of 4 boys. Of the 4 boys, 2 had been fatally killed in shooting incidents. All of them were group involved. Of the last 2 that were living, both were still victims of gun violence. Tori came to our call-in. He sat at the front. He was very eager. When he came in, he spoke to every single law enforcement officer in the room with a smile on his face, and he was the definition of, I need to make a change or else life is gonna get me the same way it got my brothers. All 4 of them had been victims of mass incarceration. None of them had finished high school. We were able to get Tori connected with educational resources. He finished his GED. He started in a trade school. In addition to that, we connected him with employment resources. He started working at Amazon. He told me he was making good money, bought a car, and also he was able to afford a lawyer and was able to help get custody of his children. These are just some of the things that we were able to assist him with, so he was able to get off of probation early. Now Tori is still that dad in he lives in Homestead, so he's in South Miami-Dade, and he is doing very well.
you know, being a social worker, we are often tasked with having to figure things out on the drop of a dime. And I've been sitting here trying to figure this out. You know, I'm convinced that Captain Brooks stole Lori's information. Lori stole Jarrell's information, because obviously he got it from the city of Miami. Okay? But why it matters is because, you know, behind every number and statistic that you see, there's always a family with a name and a life. And they deserve a system that helps them to have prevention. They deserve a system that gives them opportunity and a way to get out of their situation. So we always advocate for our people. We never give up on them, and we're always there as much as we can. And like Jarrell said, it's a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week job. And we take it on proudly.
So the videos aren't going to play. I was just told that because I airdropped it, they won't play, but it's okay. We'll roll with it. All right, so now we'll get into how the CVI model works within the Miami, I won't say Miami-Dade, the City of Miami Police District. Michael?
A great metaphor was said earlier about passing batons, and I definitely agree with that. And that's what we do. We create an ecosystem here where we're constantly passing batons to each other and back to each other, left and right, back and forth. And how it works is we have our data intelligence, which is where we get our live information from when an event happens that gives us the information that we need for the child in real time. We also have our project manager. The project manager basically gives strategic direction. We have our social workers. We handle the case management. We have the child. They're the boots on the ground. So basically how it works is an entire ecosystem for us, and we continuously push it and continuously are backing each other up left and right.
So what does it look like for us in Miami? A day in the field for CVI, we start out with safe passage. I'm known to go way ahead because I wrote most of the slides, so I'm not going to dig in too deep with safe passage. I'll leave that for the childs. But our mornings start with safe passage, where our childs are out in the field. Our childs also our child also are out canvassing as well. However, I do morning coordinations with our community health outreach workers where I'm reaching out to them individually, finding out what took place during Safe Passage, and also getting any updates from shooting incidents from the night before. We also have custom notifications. The way we do customs within the city of Miami, it would be myself, Detective Robinson, Michael, and then another detective. We don't show up with the whole cavalry. Our law enforcement officers are not dressed in their uniform. It's really laid back. And what I realized, because I've had an opportunity of doing customs on the city side and the county, where Miami-Dade County, they show up with the cavalry, with the AK-47s and the vests, and that can be very intimidating. However, when we show up, one or two unmarked cars, and maybe myself, because I get car sick, I can't ride with the police, we get more, the people are more eager to let us in their homes. They're more eager to speak with us when they don't feel as though we're coming so aggressively surrounding their homes. And then also, as Jarrell mentioned, the walking one-stops. We conduct our walking one-stops per request when an incident of violence occurs. Okay, so now I'll allow the child to tell their story.
This on? All right, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm one of the 3 community health outreach workers that Miami has, me and Adana and our other counterpart. So I wanted to just get in real quick to what that looks like, community health outreach worker. Because most people, you say it, and then they're like, oh, well, you go out and you do this and you do that and you do that, but no. And I heard a couple of other speakers get up here and say reputable people that come back and give information. I would say to that, you have to be that type of person. We are the buffer in between the police officers and the community. I used to call us the veins of this operation, because we're hands-on with a little bit of everything. We're hands-on on the streets, different areas, the hospitals. We respond to scenes, rough neighborhoods, and what have you not. Alongside of that, we do a lot of canvassing to try to prevent or try to jump ahead of the game. So we have a shooting that happens in this area over here. We have, excuse me, some statistics that show, or we know other gangs in other different areas, so we'll go canvass those areas a lot more harder in the morning times or in the evening times. We are hands-on, like I said, with the police officers. We have real-time, I guess our response time is quick, 2 minutes. Sometimes it'd be right around the corner. I kid you not. We had a shooting, and I think I was 2 blocks away. I walked over there. So that's a good thing about a credible messenger being from the neighborhood. Between me, Adana, and Shatavia, I think that, I grew up in the city. So I know all the ins and outs. I know all the after-hour clubs. I know all the little holes in the walls and stuff like that. So, and then I have no problem going into those areas. And then when people see me in the streets, they have no problem with me walking those streets, walking those areas. Now, there are some areas we can't get to like that because it's tricky. But for the most part, that's what we do. We canvass, we hit the streets hard and running to try to stop this violence going on. You want to talk a little about Safe Passage?
So we also do the Safe Passage. Safe Passage is where we go out to the schools. Usually it's high school, middle school. We walk the area that the children are using to go back and forth home. We try to make sure that they get to and from school safely, especially in the cities that we know have a lot of group activity going on. Aside from just doing the Safe Passage, though, we try to build a relationship with these students so that we can offer them the different resources that we have available to them that they may not be able to get from the school. So we do have a QR system that we use. You can also scan the QR code to see, what that entails. It's pretty much a little form that we fill out where we ask them a couple questions just to see what their need is, what their specific need is for themselves and for their family, so that by the time it gets to our social workers, they already know what these children need. They have already put together how it is that they can provide the certain support and resources that they need. And then our social workers take it from there. And that's pretty much what we do with the Safe Passage.
Also, there's a second QR code on the screen. If you scan it, you'll see that our community health outreach workers are responsible for filling out a document when they arrive on the scene, and that information goes directly to law enforcement. So there's no breakdown in communication between myself and law enforcement. I fall asleep sometimes, you know, when shootings take place 3 o'clock in the morning, and I may not, you know, relay the information directly because I'm asleep. But however, that QR code will show you the community outreach response form, and Detective Robinson gets that right away. So next, the social workers will come up.
So, hello again. I'm from Georgia, so I love that I'm back in the land of sweet tea and football. So, hey, y'all. I'm one of the social workers again. I'm Leilani. Myself and Michael, we're a team of two, but I swear we're the duo that is very mighty. We do get the referrals, and it can come from any source. Law enforcement, street outreach, it can come directly from the hospital. We take any form of referral as long as it is GVI. And we do our best to respond in an appropriate and client-based response. So we do home visits. As far as whenever we complete an intake, we go ahead and we see the home life so we can get an understanding of person in place. Also during an intake, we go ahead and utilize the global assessment of individual needs, so the GAINS assessment, as well as the adverse childhood experience, the ACE assessments, to get some information regarding their background and provide that qualitative data that we need in order to create those treatment plans and utilize that towards different things. In regards to the hospital, we do also show up in the hospital. We have a JHS, so Jackson Health System. We have a data coordinator there who is a master's level social worker as well. She deploys at the bedside and offers those services. Myself and Michael will also complete a hospital visit, so we'll assist with discharge, anything that they may need in order to streamline and help with some of their health outcomes to kind of segue into whenever they get home, they're able to assist. I see Dr. V is in the crowd. She is one of our wonderful doctors there, so she helps us a lot as well. In addition to that, we do a lot of advocacy work. Myself and Michael, being master's level clinician, we utilize CBT and DBT modalities to kind of set goal settings, and we also make it person in place. So we're gonna meet you where you're at, whether that means I gotta bribe you with a little Happy Meal, or we're sitting on the side of the street with a park with a chow. But Michael is very good at that, and we also advocate with the resources that we utilize, so I'll pass it off to him as well.
Yeah, we definitely go into the trenches and meet them where they are, as you said earlier. Go to this next screen.
So a lot of what we do is with law enforcement. We work in tandem. Like they mentioned, our child's respond to an incident. They're not working against police. We are working side by side. They may not interact on the scene, but they do have that information. We also work with law enforcement during our weekly shooting analysis. So any incident that occurs throughout the week, we review them, we provide information. Our childs are able to share what they've heard in the streets, any information that may be valuable towards an arrest. In addition to that, whenever we're notified of any violent incident, we do reach out to any clients that are within a mile range, or if we know that they frequent that area, just to follow up with them. And if they have any credible information, we pass that along as well. Everything we do is in collaboration, in addition to working with the court systems and probation. I do want to give flowers when they are due. Our wonderful law enforcement liaison, Detective Ebony Robinson, is with us, and she is always there. And a true testament to her dedication to our team and just even to our community. We did have a client that unfortunately got himself into some trouble. He had just turned 18. So in true teenager fashion, he got himself into another situation involving a firearm. Upon knowing of the situation, myself and Ebony, we reached out to him and his family. We were able to coordinate. When I spoke to him, he was scared. Of course, he's very scared because he's used to juvie, but now he's a big boy and he's gonna go to big boy jail. And he plain out said, I'm not turning myself in unless she takes me in. I know she's gonna make sure I'm okay. She'll explain to me what is going on. So thankfully, we were able to speak with him, and he did self-surrender. At that point in time, she called me. I went over to meet them. I did an on-site suicide assessment. She explained to him everything that was going on, and you would have thought in that moment it wasn't that she was law enforcement, but he felt the care. And he wasn't scared. And he called me after, and he was like, I probably would have ran if it wasn't for her. So I just want to make sure that this just goes to show you when we do GVI and we do these customs and we're standing there with law enforcement, they're not scared. It actually shows them that somebody does care. Somebody might have a uniform on, but they do care, absolutely. So I just want to mention that.
And just to add value to what Leilani just said, that is a true example of bridging the gap between law enforcement and community. And that's actually what our goal is.
So we don't do this work alone. Remember, we cut a lot of slides. And this is just a snippet of the organizations and agencies that have partnered with us to help become successful. We have Jesse Trice, which is a community-based medical and mental health agency. We have Miami Bridge, which is youth services. Of course, the county's GBI unit, we partner with them as well because we're literally right across the street from each other. And then we use a host of Miami-Dade County and the city of Miami departments to help our clients as well. Now, this is a snippet of a walk-in one-stop briefing that we just had last week in Little Haiti. Oh, the video won't play.
Let's
That's
go, it's playing.
Oh, it's playing? Oh, well, we can't hear it. So that's one of the sergeants just giving a briefing, thanking the service providers for being in the room, and then also thanking the officers for taking the
Yeah, we have our beat and our
and I was walking in ISO. And my director at the time was like, oh, keep walking, Sharon. I'm like, well, it's a gun. But law enforcement was there, to make sure that we were okay. And then a lot of times during these walk-in one-stops, we do get information about incidents that we can share with law enforcement that will help to solve a case.
So,
Sorry,
Sharon, I had a lot of it. In addition to the walk-in one-stops, we utilize them as a prevention tool. So if our childs are out and they notice that there's some trends that they see out in that community or they can use a little bit of help, they will request a walk-in one-stop just so that we're able to provide those resources. Like I know somebody mentioned before, thankfully Miami is a very resource-heavy area. So with that, a lot of the times our clients don't know how to get to them. Various barriers such as education, just not knowing, transportation, things of that nature, we try to eliminate it. We typically partner with at least 8 to 9 agencies that are there. Typically, I think the most I've seen has been 15 different agencies, ranging from Head Start to the state attorney's office brings out their bus and they're helping with seal and expungement on the scene. We've had the mobile DMV. In addition, we've partnered with some of the health centers that are there to provide on-site screenings. Christmas time, we gave out toys, just various things so that the neighborhood knows that there are people who care that are out there. And if you can't get there, we're gonna get here. And if you scan that QR code in the left, that is just a copy of our contact sheet. It fills it out. We fill it out on the scene, and it just gives a snapshot of some of the services that we can provide, ranging from education to housing or even mental health or anything that you may need. So we utilize the walk-in one-stop as intervention and a prevention tactic.
This is just a picture of the walk-in one-stop. You see Detective Robinson in the picture. You see Dr. V's leg. Sorry, I cut you off. And then we have a few service providers and detectives as well. Oh, the bags is just information. Okay, so what other cities can learn from us? Not saying that you all need us, but it may be someone in the room that has never heard or seen this type of collaboration before. And collaboration is key. Like I said, we can't do this alone. I remember when we first initially started GBI and just thinking of the service providers to bring to the table, and it wasn't until we got started that we understood, okay, we need housing at the table. We need school police at the table. We definitely need the parks department at the table. So understanding what community departments that you can invite to the table to be a part of your initiative really helps. Of course, data drives everything. Without the data, you wouldn't know which individuals to pay attention to, and the messengers matter. And I'm pointing at Brandon and Adana because I've sat on countless interviews with people interviewing to be outreach workers, and they were either terrified, they couldn't blend in the community like they can. As you see, everybody dressed up but Brandon. He is giving outreach down with his dickie on, right?
But
So,
I do have a
I know you have your
three-piece
suit. He came prepared.
He did bring his suit, but I was like, bro, be you, wear your dickie.
And so hiring the appropriate people for your street outreach really, really, really matters. We traveled to another city for a site visit. I won't mention it. And when we realized who their outreach team was, we were looking around like we see why they're not getting information, because their outreach could not relate to the community in which we were visiting.
I want to ask something about that. That it is very important to be able to blend in with any environment that you're in. You can't just. I mean, I think our first call, I was at a wedding or something, and I was in the city with lemon pepper steppers on, a brim, slacks, and the whole nine. And I turned around, I'm like, dang, dog, like, you can't be. So a lot of times we're going canvassing or we're going safe passage in sweat shorts, jerseys.
No branding on the t-shirts.
Yeah, from real time. Who did it?
Why was it done? Oh, such and such had an argument. Such and such shot this person because of this. We get the information instantly most times, and we can send that to the police right away.
So that's very important. I'm sorry, Sharon.
No, it's okay. It's okay. And then I'll jump to consistency, because I know Jarrell mentioned that as well. I too always say crime does not happen from 9 to 5. It really happens 2 o'clock in the morning when most of us are asleep. And we do continue to show. I wake them up. Once I wake them up and they do respond. But we also continuously show up for our clients, even when they disappoint and get rearrested or find other ways of getting in trouble. We continuously show up in their lives to let them know that we do want to see them safe, alive, and free.
And also on another note, how we show up for our clients. We had a client that needed to move and had an emergency. We had connections with Section 8. So we would connect the top person on Section 8, and they immediately makes that happen for our client. And they get pushed to the top of the line. And that's why it's so important to have community connections in your circle.
So we're not just here to talk about what we've been doing. We also have the numbers to show that our team is really out in the community, really responding to these incidents in real time. And they're also advising law enforcement of new groups, because in Miami, we don't have real Bloods and Crips. We may have the Zopan, like they're really culturally based. Big Haiti, Little Haiti, and today is Big Haiti, and tomorrow it'll be the Michael gang. So that's why we need our outreach that's in the community that can really come back and let us know about the different trends. We were a part of the national network under contract with them. Thankfully, they still invite me to the party. I can still show up to those meetings, thank you. And now we're currently doing more CVI work. Next slide.
So it's your city, and we also have a blueprint that we've actually adopted and made it our own. So, how do we do that? How do we build this? And how did we build this? And how can we show you? And we definitely can build it for you as well. We can build this strategic setup, which is team structure, MOUs, grants, alignment, from scratch if you need us to. And also, we can do model transfers, our full toolkit, templates, SOPs, call-in protocols, and we can also reinvent it for you as well. And you don't have to invent it for yourself. Staff training, we have credible messengers training. We also have social work integration, trauma-informed protocols, and also community mapping. We help with identifying partners, the hotspots, and your network. And we also give launch support. We don't just consult and walk away. We stay there, we help you build it. And also, we help you through your first call-ins and one-stops, walking one-stops. So with that said, we also have a mantra that we go by. It's violent prevention cannot be solved by one sector alone. When community leaders, service providers, and law enforcement work together, we can interrupt cycles of violence and create safe communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, let's give Ms. Sharona Lott and her team another round of applause. All right, our last speaker for the day is Ms. Julie Valenzuela. She's a trauma surgeon at University of Miami Ryder Trauma Center and medical director of the hospital-based violence intervention program. She is a dual board certified in general surgery and surgical critical care. And her clinical and research interests focus on firearm injury prevention, trauma-informed care, and strengthening partnerships between trauma centers and community organizations to improve outcomes for survivors of violence. Her work bridges trauma surgery, public health, and community engagement research to address violence as preventable causes of injury, and she is also interested in strengthening trauma care in global and resource-limited settings. Please give a round of applause for Ms. Dr. Julie Valenzuela. Thank you so much, Dr. B.
So good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Great. So I'm Dr. V. I'm 5'6" with heels. I'm 5'7", and as an Asian woman, that's pretty good. And I want to thank the leaders to have me speak today, but after hearing everyone, I am thinking of that Star Trek character, even though I'm not a Star Trek fan, but that guy that always says, "God damn it, Jim." I'm a doctor, not a speaker, so bear with me because I'm a trauma surgeon, which does not require public speaking skills. But as a trauma surgeon, we naturally think in systems because how we save people's lives is by improving our healthcare and our trauma system in particular. So today I want to focus on what it looks like to operationalize trauma-informed care across healthcare outreach, recovery systems, and after violent injury, which, by the way, City of Miami team just did for me, so thank you. But I'll give you my take on this, and I'll see if the slides move forward. Maybe I'm holding it backwards. Okay. So strangely, whenever I ask this question to my medical students, very few hands go up, especially in surgery. So trauma-informed care is still often framed within psychiatry, pediatrics, obstetrics. It is not traditionally framed as part of trauma surgery culture, trauma systems. Even my best friend from the military days, who is now an OB doctor, actually shockingly asked me, how is trauma-informed care relevant to your practice? Which shows you the existing uphill battle that we face. And honestly, that disconnect is what became increasingly important to me because that's what helped me start working on this deeply within the HVO community and violence intervention work. Because our patients don't just move through healthcare systems. All of you we see this. They move through law enforcement systems, schools, housing, community systems, correctional systems, and many of these systems continue to shape recovery long after that hospitalization ends. So just a few weeks ago, I had a 19-year-old come in with a gunshot wound to the groin. He was in hemorrhagic shock. He had obvious pulse-type bleeding, which means that the bullet had severed a major artery. He could not process what was happening. And from a trauma team perspective, this was a great save for us. I quickly got him to the operating room. We saved his life. We saved his leg. But the injury itself was really only part of the story. It turns out he's homeless. He's in an unstable, volatile relationship. He's already entangled in the legal system. He dropped out of school a couple years ago. So we know that surviving violent injury and recovering from violent injury are two very different things. So in the trauma bay, trauma-informed care is not perfect. And in fact, sometimes the environment itself actually works against it. But it can still be intentional, lowering my voice, explaining things to the patient, providing coverage with blankets, limiting unnecessary personnel, maybe asking law enforcement to step outside the trauma bay walls. And yet, even if I do all of that well, the trauma bay still has significant limitations. And I'll see if this will move forward. So what happens in the trauma bay and operating room matters, but it's not enough. So this is a part that trauma surgery and trauma systems do well. We stop bleeding, we restore circulation, we stabilize physiology. But trauma recovery doesn't end after I gain control of that hemorrhage. and between my two hands is his vessel. Look at the incision I had to make to get control. So after the initial hemorrhage control, I had a very short period to repair his vein, which is outlined in blue in the dashed green line. And you can see the severely damaged artery outlined in green, which I had to excise. Place an arterial graft to restore the blood flow. Technically, this was considered success. But quickly, I was very worried about his recovery course and what it was going to look like after discharge. He was facing possible incarceration, housing instability, poor family support, lack of transportation, high potential for chronic pain and PTSD. So we can do everything right in the trauma bay and operating room, but trauma and recovery occurs across the healthcare, community, and public systems. So trauma-informed care has to move with them. So one of the first gaps I had to address was a lack of trauma-informed care education within surgical training in particular. So I started integrating these principles into medical student education, surgical training, and community-facing educational models. Because if healthcare systems are going to embody trauma-informed care effectively, the training environment has to change too. So I'm comfortable teaching my medical students and within surgical education and trainee environments, but I needed stronger community and public health expertise to help guide trauma-informed training across my nursing, HFIP, and multidisciplinary teams, because each group is seeing different parts of that patient experience. So I had the privilege of asking Dr. Ann Melville Chester, Dr. Harris, and Dr. Hadley from Nashville to lead this work in Miami through a train-the-trainer cross-sector educational model. And my nurses are now training the other staff within my hospital. This work was presented to Safe States Alliance. And the City of Miami team has already gone over this, and many of you have touched upon this, that trauma-informed care has to extend beyond the bedside in real time to be truly effective, well beyond discharge, that longitudinal tracking, and through pattern recognition rather than those isolated encounters. And this has to remain embedded directly within the communities. This is where trauma-informed care starts moving from just philosophy to infrastructure. So the team has gone over this extensively, but this is what it should look like when trauma-informed care becomes coordinated, operational, and shared across systems. Because when these groups are sitting at the same table regularly, that response changes. Clinical teams gain a better understanding of the environment patients are returning to, and law enforcement gains better understanding of the social and recovery barriers patients and families are navigating. So we use this terminology a lot, trauma-informed care, everything has to be trauma-informed. What does that mean? This is one way to operationalize that. If you want understanding from both sides, we keep saying break down the silos, so how do you do that effectively? Because trauma-informed systems require this shared operational context. Let me back up one. So our research reinforced many of the barriers that I think all of us see. Recovery after violent injury is often shaped by financial toxicity, housing instability, transportation barriers. This is why our licensed social workers, like Leilani and Mike, are essential within our HVIP structure. They are navigating systems that physicians alone cannot realistically manage longitudinally, nor the police. One patient sustained a spinal cord injury, I think, at the age of 15, 16. And now, as he transitions into adulthood, our HVIP team is helping him coordinate that shift from pediatric to adult health care, rehabilitation services, social security benefits, and long-term support services. Victims of violence often face additional barriers after discharge, including rehabilitation access. A group in Boston has demonstrated recently that there's disparities in rehab placement after violent injury. And we saw the same pattern occurring within our own population. We focus particularly on traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury. And we focus on them intentionally because rehab access can dramatically influence their long-term function and independence. And it turns out violently injured patients with traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury had 49% lower odds of discharge to inpatient rehabilitation, even after adjusting for injury and demographic variables. So recovery after violent injury also depends on whether patients can successfully access the systems required to heal afterwards. So we can have everyone at the table, but if they can't access the services, then we're not going to get the results that we're seeking. So this is where Cleveland is incredibly important to our model. He is an ICU nurse with additional mental health training who was integrated into the HVIP team to help bridge that recovery gaps after discharge. Rather than expecting patients and families to navigate recovery alone, he helps them bridge that gap directly within the home environment. That includes wound care, psychosocial assessment, nutritional assessment, rehabilitation support, and helping patients and families navigate recovery after discharge. Since he's been involved and I've gotten involved, we now avoid unnecessary ER visits. He just calls me directly so we can manage patients' medical necessities. And so now this work has expanded with Troy, who's on the right with the brown jacket, our re-entry lead, who also assists with the home visits and community reintegration. Another major barrier we identified involved victim compensation after firearm injury. Many patients are technically eligible for support, but very few successfully receive it. In a national poll from the Alliance for Safety and Justice, 96% of victims are not able to receive compensation. What we found was that this was rarely a single barrier. Patients are often expected to navigate interviews, documentation systems, complicated applications, law enforcement interactions while still recovering from their severe trauma. This is another example of why trauma-informed care cannot stop at the bedside empathy. Patients often need someone who can help navigate the systems that were not designed around the realities of trauma recovery. One of the major challenges with victim compensation systems is that some requirements are highly vulnerable to subjective interpretation, and trauma responses themselves can sometimes be misinterpreted. We had one patient who became emotionally overwhelmed during an interview and asked the officer to speak with her mother instead. That interaction was interpreted as non-cooperation, and the application was denied. In another case, a patient had lost functional use of her dominant arm after a gunshot injury and physically could not complete the paperwork independently. We also found substantial variability in how patients were informed about compensation resources and assisted through the process. So in response, our HVIP social workers increasingly function as patient proxies and advocates throughout this process, helping patients prepare for interviews, communicate with victim advocates, complete applications, and navigate appeals. To go up even a system higher, there have been direct conversations between our HVIP team and state compensation representatives, which allows both of our teams to understand what the processes are, so they have an understanding what the difficulties are on boots on ground, and we are able to now finally ask them directly on how do we get through these processes in a more smooth manner. And so now between my HVIP team and myself and the new, there's constant turnover in Tallahassee, but we are constantly trying to triangulate and work directly to smooth out this process to improve this compensation approval. We've talked about the walking one stop, but again, this is one way to operationalize trauma-informed response directly within neighborhoods impacted by violence. Now, one of the biggest struggles that we have is fantastic work is getting done, but traditional documentation often fails to capture the complexity of this work. Imagine what this Miami team has just told you what they do. How do you document that to show the breadth of work that is getting done? So we developed a trauma-informed documentation framework grounded in a health equity lens. The goal was to document systems navigation, advocacy work, structural barriers, resilience, patient strengths, and longitudinal recovery context, not simply whether a referral was placed. So for us, this is one way to embed trauma-informed systems thinking within longitudinal care and move towards an asset-based assessment and care. So we need to move our metrics beyond just recidivism. We need to understand, are patients actually getting back to functional status? Are they living and thriving other than just surviving their injuries? Now, one of the most important lessons I've learned is that trauma-informed care cannot simply be imposed onto communities. It has to be co-created with people who have lived experience. The Positive Peer Leadership Mentoring Group became critical partners in that work. They asked me, they said, please come in. They wanted to learn more about trauma-informed care, not simply for themselves, but because they believe these principles should extend into schools, correctional systems, and reentry planning. They developed their own programming around issues like school-to-prison pipeline and facilitated discussions about how trauma shapes educational and justice system experiences. They also helped develop a re-entry focused survey designed to better understand the needs, stressors, and traumas individuals face as they transition back into the community. And importantly, many of the questions identified were things traditional systems were simply not asking. So that shift from designing systems for communities to designing systems with communities is ultimately what trauma-informed infrastructure should look like. So when we think about violence prevention through a trauma-informed lens, the goal is not simply reducing injury. It's not simply about reducing recidivism. It is strengthening community resilience, which all of you have touched upon today. And if you can play this one last video.
I used to just do everything, just play sports. I was a wild kid. I used to catch iguanas, turtles. Just heard a big pow, and I just fell to the ground. And I was like, I screamed, and I just fell to the ground. Then I didn't feel the other 3 bullets that hit me. Then my mom rushed outside. I was just hanging on the gate, and I told Mom I just can't feel my legs.
So Nehemiah had come in, and he's a young man, and he had come in evening time sometime in April of last year. And there were 2 things that were very evident. He had sustained multiple ballistic wounds, we'll say gunshots, to his body. He was unable to move his legs, so that immediately lets us know that he sustained some sort of injury along his spine. Those can be long-term devastating injuries. But the second thing that was also evident is that his blood pressure was very low. And whenever we are dealing with gunshot wounds, we're very concerned about hemorrhage and bleeding.
I was very calm, just sitting right there. And I was just looking up. I was like, I cannot go out like this. I just kept playing in my head, I can't go out like this.
He had an operation and found to have a major liver laceration, needed hemorrhage control of that. And afterwards, he also had sustained some injuries to the right lung and had some blood in his chest, and so required some intervention for that as well.
This incident actually occurred at their home, so of course, everyone's sense of safety was up in arms. So our program was able to house both Nehemiah, his mother, and his 3 siblings into a hotel, and that hotel placement lasted for about 5 weeks until he was discharged from the hospital.
His first day was an evaluation day. He had already been in the trauma center for a little while, and he came over here and was rearing and ready to go. So we were working a lot on his sitting balance, a lot on transfers, being able to move more independently. He got that stuff down pretty quick. The chair change is nothing. It's just a mode of transportation and getting you around. But whatever he's gonna do, he's gonna excel. He excelled here. I don't see why I wouldn't take him anywhere else.
And I have to say, Nehemiah on his own is just pure joy. I mean, he really makes us really thankful for what we do.
This is an amazing hospital. Everybody, they just played a part in how my mindset is. Even the people that said, doubted me a little bit, but just everybody that just love everybody. Because Jackson, they saved my life. The surgeons, start with them, they just help me get back up. So everybody, I'm just blessed for everybody. Just thank y'all.
Thank you. Nehemiah's journey is something that was only possible thanks to all of my community partners, HR professionals, and outreach teams. So thank all of you for all the work that you do in the communities. Thank you.
Let's give Dr. V another round of applause. All right, we're setting up for our last segment, which is the Q&A, question and answering. So if everybody that's going to be on the stage, let me call your names. Mr. Jarrell Summers, Lonnell Matthews, Dr. V, Captain Brooks, Sharona Lott, and Dr. Phyllis Hildrich. Can you please join the stage?
Okay, here we go. We don't have a lot of time, so we're going right to the rapid fire question round. First is for Sharona. What innovations in GVI have shown promise in improving community safety, and how can they be scaled or sustained? I'm thinking really talking about how, like, for longevity, right? How do you keep it going year after year?
I would say probably the Safe Passage. Safe Passage is one initiative within our CBI GBI strategy that has shown a lot of promise because it involves our child's being in the community in the mornings and the afternoons, and they get to know the youth very well, and that's when they're able to make those referrals to our social workers, who then in turn hand it over to different service providers. And the second part you asked was, how would it be sustained?
How do you keep it going year after year? Because, through personnel changes, things like that, how do you sustain it?
So fortunately for us, we haven't had any personnel changes. I think our biggest hurdle has been funding, going from contract to contract. But just keeping the team motivated, for one, the team that I've been blessed to have for the past 2.5 years, and we've got a new child. So just expanding. We're in 3 target areas now instead of 2. I think if we can continue to expand into all of the City of Miami Police Department jurisdictions, I see Safe Passage being something really big.
Thank you. This one is for you. What role should community organizations, residents, and local government each play in creating safer neighborhoods? And how do we hold each other accountable? I think the accountability piece seems really important. And can you talk about how we can do that?
I love this slide that just showed that accountability without resources is a threat. And so I think that's a really important preface here. If we don't have, as a community, a way to resource each other when there's a gap, then the use of the term accountability feels a little bit punitive. So what I would like to lean into instead is, how do we spend more time at the table with each other, finding out what you need? For example, when us going around, I noticed that transportation is on everybody's slide around everybody's issue. Heads are nodding up here. So when we, in this environment, say, what can we do around transportation? How do we get our MTA, it's WeGo locally. How do we keep WeGo at the table to say, is there something you can do? Maybe you can't do a whole new bus line, but what about one of the short buses for a targeted event that we coordinate on together? And then the last thing I would like to really go back to with this is the handoff, aftercare. In those 3 age groups that we talked about, right now, this county is doing a fantastic job with after-school programs for middle schoolers. The NASA network is amazing. You can look in the same communities and find that there's a precipitous drop-off for after-school activities for high school students. So what we do is we have a 10-year-old or 13-year-old who is doing all of this, and then you're 14 and there's nothing. So how do we think about that together in the way we plan to be engaged in the passing zone?
Thank you. Captain Brooks, this one's for you. Can you talk a little bit about how specifically you can build relationships with community? I know we've talked a lot about the importance of it, but we haven't necessarily gotten into some of the details about, building out those partnerships, building out those relationships.
Before I start, I want to take a little bit of my time to recognize someone who I don't think's gotten a lot of recognition today, and that's Glenn Hancock with the Urban League. He has done a lot of behind-the-scene work to put this together, and he's served as our MC today, and nobody, I don't think, has given you your proper round of applause, so thank you guys for recognizing him. I wanted to do that. I've worked really closely with Glenn the last couple of years, and to your point on community partnerships, that's one of the ways to do it is to get out of your comfort zones with what you normally do. I've mentioned it, a couple other presentations have mentioned how police work has evolved. And we're doing, I think, a lot of work to be proud of at the Metro Nashville Police Department But if we keep that all to ourselves and keep it internal, we're not going to be able to build any partnerships and strengthen those relationships. We got to be able to communicate about the work that we're doing, and the work that we're doing would not even be possible without those partnerships anyway. So it's kind of a weird positive catch-22 is that we have to build the relationships to do the work, but then we got to do the work to build the relationships. So it's this circle that's never ending that we constantly have to be out there in the community working and just realizing that we all have the goal of reducing violence, and we're all working to the same end up here. And so why it just doesn't make sense the way things used to be done, where my organization would be working to get to a goal of reducing violence, but we're doing it in this lane, and then there's doing it in this lane, but the lanes never communicate to keep from running into each other or interrupting each other. So I think that's huge. And then on the GVI front, one thing that the police department has to do, and that we do really well with our community partners, is information sharing has to be very clear. It has to be very transparent. We do share a lot of information with our community partners. Don't get me wrong, there's information we don't share because we don't want to jeopardize if there are certain cases, but we want to give as much information to our partnership as we can so that they know that we're not out there trying to take information to build up ourselves over here. It's like we'll give as much information as we get, sometimes probably more, but we have to be willing as police departments and police officers to trust our community partners and actually open up those lines of communication.
Thank you. Next up is for Lonell. What types of services and resources are most needed to help individuals exit cycles of violence? I think we've talked so much about, like, we have to give services and we have to give support, but what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so for a lot of the risk factors that people are going to be looking at are unaddressed trauma, lack of access to opportunity, exposure. There's going to be lack of just supports and enhanced access to negative influence, especially via social media. And so what are some of the protective factors that we could put in place to try to combat that? It's going to be mentorship, making sure that we're addressing literacy. We are creating pathways to jobs and economic viability within our community, making sure that we're addressing some of those social determinants of health. And if we're being preventative in that way, then we could avoid some of the violence and cycles of violence that we see in our communities. And we don't need to just do that for the people that are participating in harm or experiencing harm. We need to do that for their families and those that surround them in the communities as well.
Thank you. Jarrell, this one's for you. How do credible messengers and street outreach teams contribute to violence interruption and prevention? So can you just kind of walk us through what it looks like day to day and how they're engaging?
Day to day with behavioral health and wellness, what we do is a lot of information is data driven, and we try to make sure that with that data, different zip codes, that we are actually going out to those communities and canvassing. I know earlier I said, just don't be out there passing out the resources. Make sure that you are educating the community of why you're there, also letting them know what services you are providing. We also have what we do, I guess you call it a pop-up. So anytime there's a shooting that takes place, if one takes place later on today or tonight, I make sure that team is in the community the next day. We'll set up a table with those resources and also canvass the neighborhood and just let the community know that we hear, we care about you. We want to make sure that we're intentional about being out there. We're just not out there to show. We talk to the individuals, we talk to the families, and also making sure to support if they are needing any food, if they're needing even bills need to be paid. We do our best to try to provide that service to them, and hopefully that can calm the neighborhood down. Because if you just have a shooting that morning or that night, everybody is afraid. Everybody's in an uproar. So you want to do what you can to make sure you settle the community down and let them know that you're out there intentionally.
Great, thank you. Dr. V, this one's for you. So you talked a lot about, kind of what happens during a trauma situation. In a perfect world, what does it look like after? How do you connect to make sure that there is that continuum of care once they do leave the hospital?
So I think this is our biggest struggle because we've gotten very good from building a trauma system alone. So including Vanderbilt, where I trained, and Ryder, we can handle high volume, really critically ill patients, like people who historically would not have survived. And now we are saving their life. But to have the result like Nehemiah, I mean, it is incredibly difficult. I would say one of the things, I don't know at what point it's going to happen, but we need a significant restructuring of how we deliver care because it is so fragmented. I can't even tell you. And if you have no insurance, it actually makes it easy as you just don't get anything. If you have okay to bad insurance, it is so difficult. I mean, we struggle. It's interesting when I showed you that Boston study. They actually are trying to do further studies to figure out why people can't get into rehab after violent injury. And they think it has to do with their documentation, that we write things such as patient came in combative, uncooperative, because they're at hemorrhagic shock, and out of their minds, like they can't process the information, and it's likely also a trauma response. But I have a different opinion about that. I honestly think the acceptance and getting access to services after the hospital stay, it is a black box. It is so non-transparent about how they make their decisions. But one of the things that we find in our patient population is housing difficulty. And if you are involved in a violent injury and your safety and you're at risk, yes, financial toxicity is a thing no matter what you study, whether it's cancer care, end-of-life care, whatever it is. But when it comes to our patients who have sustained violent injury from firearms, and if it's group or gang involved, they have much more urgent need to get access to safer housing, which is significantly limited. And one of the things that rehab will deny services without them saying directly on paper is if you do not have a place to go to afterwards, if you do not have good support following that rehab stay, they do not want you in their facility because they're worried they're going to end up taking on somebody who ends up staying there and they can't be funded. And so we are actually trying to figure out how to, that's my hypothesis, I'm trying to figure out how to show that. But another patient of ours has, their insurance company keeps changing the DME companies that they're working with. So he had to give him a colostomy. And so he needs the colostomy supplies. And he's got significant wound care issues because he has a spinal cord injury, so he's got pressure ulcers. For him to get basic equipment, we have to rewrite a script every month because it's going to a different company every month as they keep switching and swapping. And these are the realities that nobody talks about, that despite the resources, despite having insurance, there are ongoing challenges to actually have the success that we had with Nehemiah. And we have that success because of Leilani and everyone else who's pushing incredibly hard to make sure he tries to get into the best rehab and trying to tap into every resource there is. And Leilani is actually our expert within our HVIP about housing, and she knows all the laws. And that's another benefit of the social workers working together to strategize. How do we help not just my one individual client, but everybody? And so sharing that information is vitally important.
Thank you. So I kind of want to take this a little bit of a different way than I originally planned. Working at National Network, we've had the luxury of coming into cities like Miami and Nashville and other cities and kind of getting their work going. But it's really owned by you all and all the efforts and the creativity and everything that you build into it. So as we're kind of leaving people with something to think about, what is one thing that you would just want to let everyone here know about what you do, or some advice you want to give, or something like that that you think would be helpful?
Thank you. So the first thing I would just say generally, ask this question all times in all of your work. How does this affect youth? Directly. If it affected an adult, Do they have youth in the household that are affected by that? If it affected an adult who had head of household responsibilities and they're not able to do that, do those responsibilities fall on youth and cause premature adultification so they cannot finish doing them? You see where we're going? Where are the youth? Where are they on our boards? Where are they in this planning meeting right now? Always ask the question, where are the youth? How does this affect the youth? And then think about ways we can change that answer. Thank you.
I think for me, I think there's a lot of organizations represented on the dais up here, and all of us are trying to do good. All of us are doing good work in our respective organizations. And we've done good work over the course of the years. And I think, but now what we have an opportunity to do with these partnerships is do good together. And it's going to be stronger and more effective if we're able to do it together and not just in our own respective organizations.
I'm a systems thinker more and more, and I tried to touch upon that in my talk. But for effective systems, yes, it takes collaboration, but also realistically, it takes significant amount of coordination of funding. We need to be much smarter about how we fund, and we need to be much smarter, and we need to start restructuring how we deliver care and what that continuum of care looks like. And it cannot be, we're doing very good work here, even in this room, of parallel and doing some cross collaboration, but we need to move towards some fully integrated execution, because we act as though this violence in this one realm is a standalone problem. It intersects with domestic violence, it intersects with suicide, it intersects with chronic medical conditions. So there's a complete intersection of these, and so we need to be thinking on a larger scale, and from a systems perspective, how can we address those challenges together, but systems thinking and making sure funding is going in such a way.
Dr. Reed stole what I was going to say. I was also going to mention about funding. In doing this work, we get so engulfed in helping our clients, and then you look up one day and the contract is over. And then you realize, like, how can we keep going? And my team and I were always looking for more grants and contracts and such. And sometimes it can get a little disheartening when you realize, like, we just getting started. We're just starting to see a decrease in the violent incidents in our area. So just helping each other, right? I remember we were in New York and Sasha came and was like, hey, Sharona, there's a grant. Ebony and I ran out of one of the rooms to go and apply for the grant. So just maybe sharing information about, funding sources on a national level, because I know we're all doing great work, and funding is a major resource that a lot of us don't have a lot of, that's continuously.
So, two quick things. First, in this type of work, we all experience trauma ourselves, even working in this area. And so it's hard to help other people when we haven't helped ourselves. That's first. If you're working in around violence reduction, safety, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Second, we just need a mindset shift. So a lot of people approach the concept of violence from a deficit mindset. Violence probably itself is a deficit mindset to talk about in that way. We don't talk about peace enough. We talk about trying to reduce the thing that we want to not have. But what do we want to have? We look at people and communities and we say, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with that area? What's right with that area? And so we do have to have that mindset shift and be more asset-based when we're trying to really encourage and improve and create neighborhoods that are going to thrive.
I think one thing is don't live in a bubble. There's things going around us every day, but some of us, we feel when we go to our homes, our community, we feel safe. Thriving neighborhood, you feel safe. You have access to food, you feel safe. You have access to transportation, you feel safe. but just don't live in that bubble. Continue to learn about other things that's going on in your community. See where you can help. If that's donating money to the situation, if you don't feel comfortable going out into the community, donate school supplies, donate food, find a way to get involved. One thing that resonates with me is, we talk about how violence is going down here in Nashville, but there's always somebody individually that's affected. If you think about 3 or 4 months ago, you think about the young man at Fisk University who played basketball that was tragically killed. That affects his family, that affects his community, that also affects Fisk University, and that's also affect other universities surrounded. You have Meharry, you have Tennessee State University, so everyone's affected some way and somehow. So just always keep that in mind, and just don't live in a bubble. Just continue to do work. Thank you.
One thing that my leader, Sasha, likes to say a lot is that there's a lot of power in partnership. And I think we've gotten to see that here today with all of these experts and people that are doing this amazing work. And thank you, Glenn, for your partnership and for putting this on, because I know it wasn't easy, and it was great. Thank you. And thank you to this awesome panel. I hope that everyone got something out of it today. And if there's questions, feel free to ask them. Thank you.
All right, let's give another round of applause for our candidates here. They are very good. I want to say a special thank you to everybody up here. Like I said, I didn't have to pull any strings or beg. These people were graciously giving up their time to come out and to give the word of all the work that we've been doing out here in the community. So thank you for your presence, and that wraps our first ULMT GVI conference. Thank you.